This is King Bo Christ, and you're now tuned in to the I Say That to Say This show. You know, if it ain't broke, don't break it.
Exactly. It's working right now. All right. Well, I mean, I don't have a whole bunch of stuff, man. It's just definitely, I got a few things though. Silly shit. Back over on some of the other things you've been doing. I may just tell you on the podcast, but that stuff with your boy, that Gunsmoke Cat, that is like, that's the move. Like, that's the deal. Like, if you don't have a guest, you guys just chopping it up is solid. Very listenable.
Nah, I appreciate that, man. I'm trying to find some direction in this podcast game. I feel like I'm over guests. You know, I like it. It helps me like hone my interview skills, I guess. But it's not. I don't know. It's not the same as just sitting and chopping it up with a friend who you actually enjoy talking to. I feel like personally, I get the most out of it. And you know, at the end of it all, it is about us. So you gotta.
Yeah. The conversations are going to be better. It's always better to be in the same room with somebody. You know, it's just, right. Everything about it is perfect. And he's funny, too. I mean,
oh, yeah, he's the man. Like I said, we did security together.
That's a good move.
For 2 years and just talk shit every day. Right. We probably had 1,000 episodes where we just, you know, you don't know what you don't know. But, yeah, man, I have here, I don't have too much. The gray area episode. What I wanted for this episode was whatever topic we talk about.
Oh, God damn it. Now I'm getting choppy. Hold on. This is me. Hold on. We're fixing this right now. Hold 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Motherboard.
Nah, we're good here. I need to just fucking turn off everything else that's on the Wi-Fi. It's all good. Yeah, I looked up all the stuff I wanted to have a tertiary understanding of anyway. I mean, I imagine it's probably going to clink here and there, but I mean, it's still better than Skype.
Yeah, it's been...
Okay. All right, we should be good to go. You good on your end?
I think I'm pretty much golden. Yeah, I'm good to go.
All right, cool. I'm going to stop looking this gift horse in the mouth. We can get this thing cranked up. So what were you saying now?
Yeah, for our gray area episode, whatever topic we discussed or brought up, I wanted to try to argue both sides of it. You know, like, so, you know, we obviously have our feelings and have our stance on and opinions on everything, but I wanted to also just try to see it from the other side, if just for argument's sake. And you know, what doesn't make sense isn't going to make sense, but I thought it would be cool because I noticed that whatever you say, no matter if it's like, you know, I really like the way Poland Spring kept everything nice and simple right around the logo, one little strip. There's always that one asshole who's like, well, you know, I would have appreciated if it was a couple notches down. I think the strangest thing. So I wanted to, I hate playing devil's advocate, but I did want to just take a look at the other side, just shed some light on it. Like, does this make sense? Do they have an argument here or?
Mm-hmm. All right, absolutely. Well, I'm ready when you are, if you want to lead us in there, sir.
All right, let's get this thing going. Beautiful people. Welcome to episode 51. And you know, I was thinking about it this morning. I was going to try to keep all my numbers, the numbered episodes, like a little bit of theme. And then I'm like, damn, 51. I was like, it's the gray area episode. I don't know how that could work. And I was like, oh, shit, isn't there something with Area 51? I was like, there's something here, but I got to hone in on it. But I'm with my man, Graham, of the Sports with a Cap F podcast. And for those who don't know, when you get familiar with it, make sure you dial 847-665-9238, the Cap F Sports hotline, which was a goddamn genius idea. Whatever your questions, comments, and anything in between, make sure you call the hotline so you can speak to this man right here. Graham, what's going on, my man?
Not much, General. I really appreciate you having me for this one, and I definitely appreciate the plug for the hotline. I definitely encourage people to call in. You know, if you see me on Twitter being an asshole. You actually have a phone number you could call. And he's like, let me tell you something, you son of a bitch. But, you know, whatever you want to do, if you're having a day, I'm really looking for people to call in with traffic reports. But enough about my podcast. I'm happy to be here, sir. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. And we were just talking before things got rolling. I was saying, like, you know, and I like to let my listeners in on everything. I don't give a fuck. But that I wanted to, like, slow down with guests a little bit, you know, and I wanted, like, when you come on the podcast, I noticed that I get a great response. You know what I'm saying? People like what we have to offer. So I wanted to just kind of trim the fat and keep my core peers. I don't know if that's a thing, but it just rolled off. Keep my core guys that I like talking to and like interacting with, and keep them around going forward. So it's always a pleasure. A family of the show, more than friend. You are here, and you definitely got to get me one of those Cap F Sports T-shirts. I got to get one of those.
Yeah, no, actually, right now the Cap F Sports T-shirts are very exclusive. There are one that was made by Griff's old lady, one of my co-hosts, and she made one. And now every time I wear it, someone's like, you owe me a T-shirt. So like, it's a real slow factory. There's a highly mistreated workforce, and they're not very quick. So, but there will be more.
Gotcha. So right now, you guys see the one-on-one Cap F Sports podcast. Go make sure you get on the waiting list or something, whatever you got to do. But yeah, man, the gray area episode. The first thing I had that it was like literally the first of my notes that I've been saving since, I can't even tell you, whenever the article came out. I have it pulled up here. And yeah, just over a month, February 6th, the article came out. Pornhub was banning the AI-generated porn videos, the deep fake videos. Have you heard about that?
I think I'm familiar with that. There was they were using computers to overlay the images of celebrities on porn stars, but like super realistic, like Black Mirror level realistically.
Right. When I saw that, that was like one of the scariest things I had ever seen. And for the sake of Pornhub, you know, if you want to put Kim Kardashian's face on some model's body, you know, I'm not mad at that. Go for it. Knock yourself out. But like you said, the way this thing was so realistic, I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, wait, that's not her? Like,
yeah.
I'm looking at this thing like, and I stopped for a second. I'm like, see, Pornhub's doing a good job taking these deep fake videos off because it just is creepy just to, you know, to put a label on it. But I started to think, I'm like, damn, you know, what happens if this was like a fucking 7-Eleven robbery video? There's not going to be that much, you know, like we know this is not Kim Kardashian, but I'm like, now what if like someone put my face on a bank robbery video and you see me running out? Who the fuck's going to take my word for it?
Yeah, exactly. What level of scrutiny is there going to be if you were accused of something and there's video evidence of it and you're just you or I'm just me? They're like, oh, here's a video you know, stabbing this old lady in an alley. Like, what's going to stop them from, like, how much scrutiny is going to be on whether that video is real or not, or was generated by an artificial intelligence? Probably none, you know?
Sure. And I'm telling you, I saw that and I was wondering, like, damn, has technology gone too far? You know, it was funny when it's a meme and a little bit of a Photoshop job and whatever else, and you move on and it's harmless. But I'm like, now that we're to the point where we're creating actual videos with artificial intelligence, I'm like, I don't know. And I know that we've had our fair share of conspiracy theories, but I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm afraid of where this thing is going.
It's disconcerting to say the least. I mean, it certainly seems unlikely that a regular civilian would be subjected to that level of cover up, or, you know, but who knows what situation you may find yourself in. Speaking strictly from like a conspiracy theory standpoint, like, who knows what sort of situation you may find yourself in. You were in a crowd of people, they needed a fall guy for some sort of orchestrated terrorist attack, and they just put your face on the face. So what? Like, what are you left with? What's your recourse? You can say, no, of course that wasn't me, but they could even pretend to track your cell phone to be standing at that spot consider the possibility. But to piggyback off what you said, though, about has technology gone too far, the answer is yes, and we're nowhere near this is the tip of the iceberg of the insane way people are going to be able to manipulate the actual way you perceive the world around you. You know, like the actual way you input information into your brain through your eyes. Like eventually, you know, in my lifetime, these glasses will be able to present me an augmented reality. You know, glasses like this. And then what can they put in?
Right.
You know, and then if you're experiencing augmented reality, if law enforcement needed you to stop moving, how hard would it be for them to implant something in your eyes that makes you believe you're trapped in a brick room? And even worse and more insidious than law enforcement is the idea of advertising. Like eventually your life will be like an augmented reality acid trip complete with ads from Pepsi. That scares me way more than the police. The idea of just like waking up in the morning, they're like, why don't you have some Minute Maid? I'm like, get the fuck out of my house! Ad block! It doesn't exist.
Like, you know, you're like, oh, damn, I could have sworn that was Tropicana, but you know, they kind of adjusted like those Google ads, and it just is what it is.
No, because we're already definitely there. I mean, if you're online, if you're carrying around a cell phone, that's sort of one of the things that kills me about conspiracy theorists. They talk about camera bees and people following you around. We're all out here voluntarily tracking ourselves, telling people what we like, taking pictures of ourselves. Like, this is what my living room looks like. These are my kids, you know? Like, the government doesn't need to follow you around anymore. We're all just volunteering all that information.
And, you know, that's actually, I think about that every time I agree to terms and conditions. Because you'd have to be a fucking high-powered attorney to understand all that shit anyway. It's 38 pages, and I'm like, look, man, I just want to sign up for Zoom. I don't know.
You'd have to hire 2 paralegals to read that shit for you.
Seriously.
No.
So we could be agreeing to this shit. I don't know, but like you said, if everyone goes into their settings on their phone and you look at, I forget how to exactly find it, but it shows you, like, no, it can tell you your last 5 locations and everything you've done and every place you've been. So, you know, we're in it. And like you said, this is the tip of the iceberg, and that is the scary part. And
some people out here just fucking, like, actively volunteering this information on, like, Facebook. They're like, oh, just checked in at this restaurant. I'm definitely not at my house, and here's all the people I'm with and what they look like.
True.
You know, I mean, from my standpoint, that's a bad idea, just like civilian to civilian. I don't want people like, oh, hey, Graham's over here with this group of people right now doing this. Like, why would that be anybody's business? I'm not that vain. I'm not interested in people being obsessed with where I'm at. And it's a bad idea. I say a lot of crazy shit. Like, people might be like, oh, is that where you're at? Okay.
Yeah. You know? And the way the Google works, that you could literally take an image, plug it into a website, it'll tell you exactly where it is. Very scary. You know, so, and like we're down. I like being and
then you probably have another app that'll tell you if there's anywhere to park.
Yeah, true. I'm telling this. I don't know, man. I tell you, and to flip it for the other side of it, I don't really see the upside of creating this chaos other than for control. And I'm not going to say like the government's behind this. I don't mean that, because there's guys like me and you. We just want a podcast for fun, for the sake of the joke, for the sake of bringing people together and laughing. And
absolutely.
There's other people that want to just create utter and complete fucking chaos. And that's why I'm like, I don't see the upside of giving people access to all this fucking.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's possible too, though, that what we're looking at is, like, as a species and like as a society, we sort of asked for a lot of these things, and the companies that control all our data were like, here's stuff you might like. And really, at the end of the day, it's about them selling you ads and charging people money to get your business. And it's super nefarious and Big Brother-ish. But I think maybe we're living in a world where we're not really sure how to interact with this level of technology, you know, and that's why it's sort of insane chaos. That's why you see people getting shot on Facebook Live, or like, you know, a guy catches his wife cheating on him on a Periscope, you know, like it's just, we just don't, you know, or like traffic gets backed up because some asshole wrote on the internet that gas was illegal, you know, like there's all these things that happen. But I think at the end of the day, it's just us as like super advanced primates not really knowing how to respond to this level of input. You know what I mean? Like this.
No,
level.
yeah, that makes complete sense. And like I did a live podcast, a Periscope podcast a couple nights ago with another gentleman, 12 Woods, and we do our podcast. I don't edit shit, as you know. I know you put a lot of time and effort into it.
Yeah.
And it goes
I don't edit anymore, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Right. But we know how the process. But doing a live show was actually, I was like, oh shit. I'm like, like there's a lot. Like if my phone rings right now, or my wife walks down right now, like that's just out there. I was like, there's no taking that back. I was like, that's a little bit of a different dynamic. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. To do a podcast about podcasts here for a minute. I'm intrigued by the idea of doing a live podcast. I don't know if I'm set up for it yet, but I have always been intrigued with the idea too. And just for the sake of being lazy, like I just do my podcast. If I can, even on the YouTube end, if I can lay the intro in and the music and everything's all right by the time it's over, you would just do the podcast, shoot it, and then it would exist instead of having the back end part of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like producer too,
And I also like the live interaction with the audience because they give you comments and feedback right away. I thought that was a pretty cool dynamic. So I thought about it. We'll talk more about that actually because we may could put a live show together. We gotta figure this thing out. But and all that reminds me. I just put up some shit on my Instagram.
Oh no! At some point in the future, you're gonna see me stomping through Long Island before it's all said and done.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely. I got a chair and a bench warmed up for you right here, ready to roll.
It'll happen eventually. Don't even worry.
I put up something on Instagram today that was like, when you're talking to me, bear with me because we're gonna during one conversation, we're gonna have 19 mini conversations. And I thought about you immediately.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was like, I
was just gonna ask. I was like, is any of this making any sense? Because we sound like two kids that haven't seen each other in forever. Like,
listen, man, that's hilarious. Listen, it all makes sense. It gets greater later. That's the whole purpose of the I Say That to Say This podcast. Because sometimes you got to tell a whole other story to make another story makes sense. It's not that we're talking fast. You may be listening slow. But anyway.
Yeah. Good shit. I like it.
Back to what we were talking about with technology. And we were talking about giving away information. I also saw something this week that the FBI was paying Geek Squad employees to when they get some vital information to alert the FBI. When Geek Squad employees are coming to you, you call up Bestbuy. It's like, hey, my laptop's fucked up. I don't know what's going on with it. You call up Geek Squad. They come to your house, in your home, sit at your laptop, and maybe they see something that you've been Googling AR-15s for a couple weeks now. They're gonna take it upon themselves to let the FBI know because I don't know when. Maybe it's in there in the terms and conditions, but you agreed to that, and I thought that I'm like, look, if we're looking for something like child porn or some shit, I'm all for that. Please get these guys. But I'm like going into your home and alerting the FBI. Like I don't know if I'm cool with that.
Well, and why should you feel concerned, about the things you're trying to learn using the internet? Because I even catch myself doing that. Because I'll have a thought. I'll be like, well, how many ISIS members were killed by drone strikes? Or like, how many ISIS cells are there in the world? And then you Google it, and for a second you're like, am I allowed to look this up? Is it like, can't I just be curious?
See, what you Googled is actually valid. Like I understand. The crazy. The last time this happened to me was it was just, I forget what I was talking about, but I was mentioning like the R. Kelly sex tape, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, when was that? And I fucking Googled R. Kelly sex tape. And you know what? I actually think I was live on the podcast, episode 33. Now that
I do remember you talking about that on the podcast.
It just came back to me. I'm like, actually, I think that was live. I Googled R. Kelly sex tape, and right when I was gonna hit enter, I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, is this gonna like red flag me for something? Because technically this is
Could be.
this is like child porn, I guess. She's 50, and I was just like, I'm like, it's very tricky. So like you just said, you could just be Googling something for the information aspect and end up on some fucking Geek Squad hit list.
Yeah, you end up flagged on some list, and then if they're looking for a fall guy, they digitally impose your face on some actor, and all of a sudden you're robbing a bank, and they're like, it's right down the street from his house,
There you go.
You were taking a nap, you wake up a wanted man.
All because some celebrity net worth.
Yeah. I remember that, though. Yeah. I remember that, though, from the R. Kelly sex tape specifically, because I don't know if it's even illegal for me to say this. I saw it because when I lived in Chicago when it happened, and it was, there were many VHS tapes floating about, and I saw it, and I even remember people saying, oh, they like made it look like art, because a lot of people didn't want to believe it. Sure. I mean, which is weird, not to get too far off track, but the man produced a song by a 15-year-old girl called AJ Nothing But a Number.
That's a fact.
Yeah, Kel's.
When you go back and look at it, he was telling us the whole time, So yeah. I'm with you. But yeah, no, very true. That I remember that I probably was about 12 or 13 when it came out. So I remember seeing it, and I remember him being like, "Nah, that's not me," and I'm like, "Bro."
Yeah. And that's the thing too, though. So that's definitely the flip side to being afraid of those videos is also like the ability to manipulate video that way. The flip side of that is that now dudes will rob a bank and be like, "Nah, I put my face on that guy."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or a dude will pee on a 15-year-old and be like, "No, that was another guy. They put my face on there."
Nah, see, that was a super soaker, and I was actually holding a water gun that wasn't even my dick. So,
yep, exactly.
This thing is gonna get very scary very fast. I'm gonna tell you that shit right now.
No, that spins around real quick there. Man, you mentioned R. Kelly. I can go on about R. Kelly for a long time, but I don't think anybody necessarily wants to hear that. Because R. Kelly disappointed me. I know you're a big fan, and TP2.com changed my life, and that was right at the age.
Wow, that's my defining album also, and I'm like, yo, this guy's a fucking legend.
Yeah. In hindsight, though, I look back on it and I'm like, at one point I liked Limp Bizkit too. Like at one point.
Wow, true. That's some shit I never.
I like R&B, but feeling on your booty is silly as shit. That's goofy as fuck.
Yo, I'm gonna tell you some crazy shit. That just fucking blew my mind. Maybe it's this OG Kush, I don't know, but it's crazy you just said that because it like feeling on your booty was straight to the point at 15. I'm like, yeah, he gets it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he was like 40 then.
Yeah, so right, exactly. That's
we're very far removed at that point from the work of Marvin Gaye when R. Kelly's like,
wow,
feeling on your booty.
And I know that we're going somewhere else, but I gotta speak on it since we're at this moment. What you said is exactly, and that's why I love having you on the show, because we're always on the same page. That's what gets me about like R. Kelly now, that he was 40 then and I was fucking 15, and it made sense. It was cool. I got it. Now that I'm 30 and he's like, I think my dad's 57, so I think he's close to my dad's age. Maybe we could Google it for the sake of the podcast, though. We'll just call him 55, and move on.
Yeah, we'll call him 55. Yeah.
So that's what gets me about him now. It's like I hear his music now, and I'm like, bro, damn, did you put any effort into this? Like, we couldn't use a metaphor or some shit here. Like, there's nothing else we could go with this, and it changed. It changed the dynamic, because now I'm 30 and I hear this guy talking about like fucking my girl, and I'm like, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I don't really want to hear this when I'm in traffic at 5 o'clock in the evening. Like,
no, yeah.
So
I think
Kelly,
too, as far as that genre of R&B goes, I think as I get older, I have so much less time for it.
Oh, that's a fact. And I'm gonna open up my my iTunes right now. Oh, that's funny that I did download the Black Youngster Booty song, but that's another story for another day. But I just last night I downloaded the complete Earth, Wind and Fire, like their whole catalog.
Beautiful.
This is just last night, and I'm like, wow, new music. I almost feel like I'm going backwards in time. You know, like the new shit that comes out, I'm like, this doesn't make me think. This is different. I agree. I find myself going back into some old shit, but like you said, like I remember when that Kid Rock song came out, I was like an avid Kid Rock listener for a very small window. I think it's just one song, and that's the crazy shit about one hit wonders that. You know, it just I mean, I don't want to call him a one-hit wonder because he did have.
Yeah, no, Kid Rock endured, but just not in the mainstream as he did it.
And at the same token, I also downloaded Black Youngster. This is the first fucking bit of music that I didn't even listen to the whole song of his, but I'm like, damn, I just downloaded Black Youngster. I'm like, what is it coming to? So
you know, it's funny because I'm about 4 years older than you, and I look at you at this age, and it's fun. Like, I'm not junior in you or anything, but as far as like the way you're kind of adjusting to that move into 30, it's familiar to me. Because I would be like, "Well, come on, I'm not that old. I can listen to this. Who's doing that music right now?" And I was like, "Listen," and right. "Oh no, I can't." And then sometimes that'll force you to go back and listen to some shit you thought was super bomb when you were young, and you listen to that and you're like, no, I was dumb then. Dumb then.
That's a fact.
There's a reason Earth, Wind and Fire is still doing downloads right now, because that music is timeless. A lot of that, like, you know, and you're older too, and you're like, you kind of demand more from your music. You know, it's like, and I think we're super unfair as hip hop fans when we hear artists now and expect somebody to put out Illmatic. Well, if somebody put out Illmatic today, it would sound ridiculous. They would have all these weird old school samples and like a drum machine, and we just romanticize that because it was then and it was pioneering, you know. And then what they're pioneering now is garbage. But I'm just saying that at one point we were hearing hearing people pioneering things that were sonically pleasing, you know.
Sure. And you know what? Actually, to be fair, I won't even because I'm with you. I won't call all garbage, but you know what I discovered? But again, you hit the nail on the head that we do look back into that little window of music whenever our defining moments are, so to speak, and we hold on to that and we compare everything to that. I heard I forget his name, like Bokeen. I don't know his last name. The dude from like he was in a lot of '90s movies. And I'll put the clip in. I'll try to edit that in. It'll be my one edit that I'll try to throw in there. But he said, I heard him listening. He was talking about. He's like, yeah, you know, in rap, after about the year 1995, you know, it was when it changed. And he's like, and Biggie died. And he's like, around 1997, rap just went to shit. And I was like, whoa. I'm like, damn, 97, bro. I'm like, that's my window from like 97 to like 2006.
Yeah, that's too early. That's where I came in.
Yeah. And he's like, anything after that was garbage. And I'm like, damn. Like, am I doing that to the next generation? I'm like, you cut off 97. I'm like, we didn't even get our best Hove album yet. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh no, we're doing that. And I didn't mean to say that everybody now is garbage. Because there's always going to be MCs.
Right. Never see, I knew what you meant, but that's why
you knew who I was talking about.
Right, I knew what you meant because right here, I got my Get Rich or Die Trying vinyl. Yep. And I hold on because I'm getting my setup right. This is my defining moment. When did this come out? 2003. I'm like,
that record. People talk shit. That record.
2003.
Was mind-bending. That record was, you know, it changed everything. You know, Eminem essentially like announced himself as the new Dre. There was like there's so much going on with that record.
100%.
But you know what? I don't know if you could play it in your car tomorrow and listen to the whole thing front to back all day like you used to. You know what I mean?
And that's where it's tricky. That's where it's very tricky because I look at it now and I don't know. You can't play it straight through. I can't. I can pick and choose, and when it comes on my shuffle, You catch me in the right moment, I'm like, oh my God, this is my shit. This is crazy. Like I couldn't even drive when I used to enjoy this song. But you can't, I don't go and want to sit in, I don't want to sit in the podcast studio and sit back and just play Get Rich or Die Trying. The dynamic change. You know what I mean?
You would feel strange.
Right. There was literally at the halfway point to my life right now. That was literally 15 years ago. I'm going to be 30 this year. There's so much has changed. You know what I mean? Like even I was going to do a top 64 bracket, rapper bracket. And I'm like, damn, I'm like, a lot of this shit is dated. I'm like, I don't even know 10 rappers.
Yeah, well, what do you compare it to? It's apples and oranges. And just to walk backwards a little bit, when you said, like, oh, am I junior in the next generation about their music? Like that cat who said music died and hip-hop died in 97. The answer to that question is yes, we are. And I don't think we can help it. I think it has something to do with, like, the way our brains have formed at this point. Because I listened to a gentleman by the name of Lil Xan, right? Because everyone on the internet was like, oh, Lil Xan is trash. And T.I. was like, you're kicked out of rap. And I was like, well, how bad could this be? And I listened to it, and it sounded exactly the same as every one of his peers. Like, is that markedly worse than Tekashi's 69 or whatever? Wow. Is that markedly worse? It's not any worse. And when I listened to it, I was like, objectively, as a dude who doesn't even listen to this kind of hip-hop, this is, in some respects, better because it's like there's more production value to it than a lot of the other shit I hear. And everyone's like, oh, you're kicked out of rap. So to me, with that thought experiment, it proves that, yes, I'm old. All that shit sounds the same, and I've had enough of that racket.
But you know what? That's why I fuck with you, because I just showed you me downloaded in the Earth, Wind, and Fire. I also, like, I don't know, probably like last week sometime, I listened to XX Tentacion for the first time, and I actually fucked with it. Like, he has a song that I'm like, wow, that's actually really not bad. And it's about, like, depression. It's the strangest shit. But I'm like, it just caught me. I'm like, wow, I'm like, oh. I'm like, there you go. Like, I'm like, all right, I listened to one of them. I couldn't pull the trigger on listening to Lil Xan. I don't know if that'll happen. I wasn't in that much of a good mood. But
I was like, hey, everybody was so fervently like, fuck this kid. And I was like, how much worse can he be than you?
Sure. You had to do some great. That's a fact. You had to do some great area investigating and shed some light.
It sucked equally.
So I guess that's, like you said, it may be in our brains because I do it and I don't even realize until 4 days later when I'm like, oh, there I go being a hypocrite again. But I guess that's just the game. And
you know what you like though, and to me at this age, I feel like I've earned it. Listen, here's another thing these fucking kids don't understand. Okay, every time an artist comes out now, it just shows up in your Magic Pocket computer, like, oh, and I can listen to their song and peruse their album. When I was listening to music, someone I liked or someone I was curious about would come out with an album. I would go to the store and spend $20, and then they would, or 15 or 12, or if it was some underground shit in Chicago, I had to go to some janky record store and sometimes drop like $25 for a burned CD, right? You were committed then. You know what I mean? You were committed to listening to that music. And if you bought a shitty record, you just got robbed. You couldn't go on the internet and be like, hey, Method Man, that album was fucking trash. You owe me $50.
That's a fucking fact.
Now artists just put their music out for free, and if it sucks, people are like, this shit is whack.
Yeah,
and you can go back to the drawing board. It's like a free survey.
Wow, that's very fucking true. I remember even I took the bus to the mall to get that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
By that time, I was gonna like that shit by the time I got home. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. When I was a shorty, I had to go on the fucking west side of Chicago and buy music. Like, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta get this record. And you're goddamn right. By the time I got home, I was like, oh, this better bump. This better bump hard as fuck.
That's a fact.
yeah. So kids now, you know, like when I think that's why it's so much easier to talk shit about artists now, because anybody who wants to make music can make it, you know? Like, that even started when we got a little bit older, but like, in the day, I had to live in a world where I was like, fuck, I bought Inspector Deck's new record. God damn it. Fuck, he got me again.
But that's what I also, to the, you know, for the flip side of it, I love that about this generation, that they really have the courage to be like, fuck it, I'm putting it out. And because some people could listen to my podcast, they'd be crazy, but they could listen to my podcast and say, the fuck is this guy talking about? You know what I'm saying? They could listen to your podcast like, this isn't about sports, because for some reason
100% they would think that.
right. But the beauty of it is we get to put it out, and we get to, and like, if they enjoy making it and they enjoy putting out some shit that I don't even understand, it's not even audible to me, it's like, you know what, bro, go for it, knock yourself out. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it's,
and I say that a lot about these kids, because I hear, like, I don't know, like you talked about with Lil Xan. People were so hard on him, and I'm like, look, I don't know. I'm like, I think everyone's just jumping. I'm like, who the fuck listens to? I'm like, I never heard of this kid. I can't sit and talk about he should be banned from hip hop. I don't. He had a hot take that was a little crazy, but I'm not mad at him for it, because I called Tupac a ballerina countless times.
We've all seen the video of him in the leotard.
That's what I'm saying. But if you just took that clip and put it out there. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, Tupac was also doing the Humpty Hump at one point. If we just cut his career off and said, look at this Humpty Hump bullshit, get this guy out of here, he's not giving respect to the legends, everything changes. The dynamic of everything changes. So for us to do what we do for real, we got to kind of just let it develop. He said some bullshit, and I said, you know what? Fuck it, ban him. I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? But then I really thought about it, and I'm like,
yeah, but you know what else, though? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, too, though, if you think about it, in his world, saying some shit like that, a lot of these mumble rap kids have been like, Biggie's boring. Like, what's his name with the red beads was like, oh, that's my grandpa's music.
Oh,
like, and that's ridiculous to say if you're a hip-hop artist. But it's not that ridiculous to say if you're 19 years old. 100%. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you were born in, like, 1995, your grandpa really did listen to Biggie, you know? Like,
100%.
And Lil Xan lives in a world where he looks like a fucking Abercrombie & Fitch model with tattoos on his face, but in order to get recognition, he gives an interview and says, Tupac's boring, and now who are we talking about?
That's a fact.
Fucking,
I actually thought it was the kid from Famous. I thought Lil Xan was the kid from Famous. I'm not even kidding. I was like, oh, he raps? And I was like, oh, that's weird. Yeah. And I was like, oh, shit. I'm like, that's that's not Carl? I was like, this is fucked up. Or whatever his name was. Like, this is fucked up. You know what I'm saying? But
but I mean, we do that. I mean, everybody did it to us. Like, when I was a shorty in Chicago, cats would be like, 10 years ago, if you guys grew up when I grew up, you wouldn't even come around here.
Yeah,
you know?
True.
Like,
Yeah, true.
Like, you know, it's all the same thing, you know. We all grow up in a world, and that's not to go too far a point, but that's a real thing in human psychology. That's why Donald Trump was so successful. Saying "Make America Great Again" sounds ridiculous to a reasonable person, but to even everybody, regardless of your background, you know somebody, or maybe you are the person who's like, oh, well, things were like, when I was a kid, none of this happened, this and that didn't go on, and now I see 30-year-olds who are like, oh, all these rappers are talking about taking drugs and shooting people. That's ridiculous. And I'm like, didn't we go to the Dre concert together? Like, weren't we in the car listening to Twisted, throwing gang signs out the window, and like we were teenagers too. We were retarded, and nothing changes if everyone crosses that threshold into adulthood and then looks back at people behaving the same way they behave with like judgment, like we would have never done that. I know people are like, I don't remember girls getting pregnant that early. I'm like, dude, we're 33, 7 girls we went to high school with had kids before graduation.
That's a fucking fact. And the same thing is
people.
Sure.
You know? it's like there's not more pedophiles now than there were. They're just on TV. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I say the same thing.
Gay people than there used to be. They're just allowed to go outside without getting burned. Like it's all people. We all kind of shake out as far as like those kind of wirings are concerned in a similar amount. You know.
110%, my man. I'm totally with you. I say the same thing because I'm like, look, the world's been the same. It's just a matter of everything. We have exposure to everything now. Mm-hmm. Like we talked about going to the mall to buy an album, and the process it took. These kids now just let you know everything they listen to right when it happens, and they move on, and we're exposed to it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
that was actually a whole thing with a group of people I grew up with. I don't know if you remember Cuckoo Cal.
I do, and I wish Mad Lou could see me now.
Cuckoo Cal released a follow-up album to that album that I bought for $18 at like the expensive record store. And that's like a saying among cats I grew up with at this point. It's like, this is the Cuckoo Cal album all over again when I get obsessed with stuff. Because I wouldn't let it die. I was like, I don't know, play it again.
Anytime. You got it. I'll hit you in a few minutes. All right. But, no, I'm sorry. I missed that last thing you said.
No, you're good. You're a little company over there. No, I was just saying that we even use that as an example. Like, if I won't let something go, people will be like, oh, this is the Cuckoo Cal album all over again. Because I bought Cuckoo Cal's follow-up record, and I wouldn't let it die. I was like, I paid $18 for that shit. Put it back in and let it run one more time.
And you know what's crazy about that? Also, because you mentioned Twista also. That's even when that combination came with R. Kelly and Twista, they had a fucking zone of music that I was like, yo, this shit is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Twista coming out, but then I bring them up because it was that same time that I bought his album and I was like, shit, I'm committed.
You're talking about the album he did with Kanye. That Kamikaze, the one that had.
Oh no! Listen, Kamikaze was severely underrated.
Can I tell you a story about Kamikaze real quick?
Please.
While we're here. Okay. So growing up, I was a tremendous Twista fan. I had Adrenaline Rush on a cassette tape when I was in middle school. I was definitely the only kid in my neighborhood who had a Twista.
That's a fact.
So listen to it. And then I got a copy of Resurrection, which is actually his album before that nobody knows about outside of Chicago. And he rapped real slow on that. It was sort of more of like a Naughty by Nature kind of flow. That was when he had beef with Naughty by Nature. A lot of people don't know the twist that Naughty by Nature had.
I can't even imagine. Point. I'm still stuck on him rapping.
And then, so he made... Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't imagine. That's crazy.
That I didn't have where he wore like. No, there was an album before that where Twista wore like a dashiki and had a peace sign logo thing. He looked like whoever that Arrested Development at one point. Yeah, that's a real thing. Yeah,
that's crazy. I got to go check that out.
We're going deep here, goddammit. I know about these things.
No, I see it. I fuck with that.
So after Adrenaline Rush came out, he did a record called Speed Not Mobsters with the two guys who were in his crew. And it's phenomenal, all produced by Legendary Tracks. It's great. And on the inside liner note of that album that I think came out in 2000, maybe 2001, it was like Twista Kamikaze coming 2003. And then it got pushed back. And then it got pushed back. So by the time Kamikaze came out, I had been waiting about 10 years for that album.
Wow.
And it had 2 good songs on it. Like, it had 2. If you listen to Adrenaline Rush and then be like, what do you think this dude would have done 10 years later with a follow-up? Because Adrenaline Rush is phenomenal, front to back. It never slows down.
You know what? I think I just mixed the two up. That's why when I say it wasn't Kamikaze, because I did have it right the first time. It wasn't Kamikaze was underrated. Adrenaline Rush was underrated. And that's why I say I was right there with you. I mean, I didn't know about the other shit. I got to go listen to early Twister, and then that's why I say when Kamikaze came out, it was Overnight Celebrity and was it Slow Jams, right? Or was that?
Yes, Slow Jams, and then
exactly. That's the point. That when I listened to Twister, the whole shit, I was like, bruh. Like,
Yeah, you gotta go back to though and listen to like not even just his super gangster Chicago shit, but based on features alone. If you go back and listen to his features on remixes like shit he did with Timbaland, like there's some shit Twisted and Timbaland.
Oh no, he was a legend. Like, and for that time, and that's why it's effective, because like for that time, music in Chicago wasn't spreading to New York that crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, wait, he's from Chicago, and it was really in my brain to be like, how the fuck did I find this? You know what I mean? Like we didn't have.
Yeah.
If it made MTV, it was a go. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, and that's why I respect Twisted in that regard though too, because it's like R. Kelly, and then even Common. Like Common was pretty respected in the East Coast hip hop world, but that was because he moved to New York. Like Cats knew he was from Chicago, but then he moved to New York and like sort of adopted that. Twisted's really the only cat who never left Chicago. There's a ton of rappers who never left Chicago that you've never heard of.
Yeah. You know, well, like everywhere. But that's right.
Yeah. They have their own scene though. Chicago hip hop does have like a rich, deep history within the 3 or 4 million people that live there. But it's also all super depressing and real, like specifically gang related to where like if you didn't live there, Chicago rap music would make no sense at all. You'd be like, what in the fuck are they talking about?
I'm going to tell you some crazy shit, and I guess we'll put a button on this Chicago because I started thinking about how much music. You stop me. No. I just started thinking about how much music Twista owes me, and I almost got annoyed with him. So
see, you bought those albums. See, I'm in the same boat.
Like when you think about the time and energy we put into trying to make that one work, I'm like, you know what? Actually, I may do with these kids.
Rockefeller signed him. People fucked with him. He was on everybody's shit, but then he would drop an album, and you'd be like, well, there's 2 songs that don't make me want to kill myself on that record.
And it wasn't like now when I'm listening to a podcast and tweeting and texting. Like I was committed for that 4-minute and 31-second song. So to make that shit work was a big. But I had a run with where I love Chief Keef is the craziest shit, and I swear now that's some crazy shit that I don't know what it is about that album, but I swear now that shit I'll let play straight through. It's the strangest fucking thing to me. I just it gives me a certain weird feeling, but I've not listened to. I've listened to zero. I have zero desire to listen to any new Chief Keef that comes out right now.
Right.
Like, even talking about it sounds crazy to even bring up, but so it's something about like the waves of Chicago, because that's what I think it is with Chicago music. When it gets very specifically gang related, it loses me. It's like I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even pinpoint it, but like the album, like Finally Rich, it was like he was kind of making the transition to being like outside of that bubble. And I think with Chicago, it's such loyalty and root, because I know like even your sports history, how you feel about the Cubs, they may feel that shit about that their original set. You know what I'm saying? So when they're like, I gotta stick with this, let me get back to the core, and when they start going super fan mode, I think that's where we lose it, and that's why I wanted to, and that's why I wanted to.
Well, but I think Chicago cats have always felt slightly inferior to New York cats, because cats who don't live in New York know what Broadway is. Not everybody knows what Cicero is. You know what I mean? So cats in Chicago feel the need to be like, look, our city is the shit too. Like when I talk about Grand, you know where that is, and if you don't, come check it out.
That actually makes.
I think we've always felt a smidge, because New York's the only one of the big 5 I've never been to, but I know it in my head. I know how your street number system works. I know like the 5 boroughs, and I just know that because I watch TV and listen to music. And as a Chicagoan, it makes me want to puke, because I'm like, people in New York don't know where State Street is.
and that's actually,
but it's true though.
That's actually valid, and that's why I said I didn't want to spend too much time on the Chicago rap, because you hit that on the head with that, and I didn't want to get past what you said, because it was very valid about Trump, and that's how he got people to believe in him. And that's why.
Because you look back on the past and think it's better, but it's just because you were happier then because you were younger.
But most importantly, he gave them something that everyone could relate to across the nation. And I think that is fucking crazy that there's a kid. I'm not wealthy, but I live in a wealthy neighborhood. There's a kid across the street, not across the street, but I'm just speaking, in podcast facts here. But like, to be realistic, there's a kid in my same neighborhood that feels like he really had it hard his whole life. When your parents have, access to probably $10 million, you know what I mean? So it's weird that a kid like that and some kid in Louisiana will really stand behind Trump for two different reasons, but the same guy like struck a chord with them and something that they could relate to. It's very fucking, it's very strange. Like when you talk about like rap music and someone could, like you said, or not rap music, like location where all 5 boroughs. I don't know in Chicago. I don't know if they use counties, cities. I don't know. Like I can't.
There's neighborhoods. God damn it! There's like 130 neighborhoods. It's all in one county. Okay, it's a bunch of neighborhoods. You just stay where you are. Don't come there. Don't catch up on hot dogs. This podcast is over. No. I'm sorry, I totally derailed your thought.
That's exactly my point, because I know it's funny that you say that Chicago dudes are a little sensitive, because I know it's true though. Like that's what's fucked up about it. It's very true. I gotta remember to get that clip. Like that's gonna be the Instagram because that's fucking hilarious. But with Trump, man, like I thought it was interesting because we talked about it before, and I wanted to follow up on it because we the beauty of talking to you is we could have a lot of fun for 5 hours, but we also could have a serious talk for 5 hours. So things with you as like things get fun, but I like that with the gray area is like shit could get dark quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because that's why it's fun. Even sometimes when you're having fun, in order to keep it going, you got to get a little dark. You kind of have to laugh at your situation.
And now that I say it, I'm gonna ask you this because I've never asked you that, but is it you also like the way I am on my podcast? It keeps me from fucking dealing with the harsh realities of life. Like I almost have to tell a joke because if you left it up to me, it's fucking depressing what's happening.
Bro, that's how I live my life, and that's like a huge part. It's something I admire in your podcast because you're willing to like dive into those waters. But it's part of the reason why on my podcast I don't really like to talk about like pop culture issues. I don't really like to talk about news that everyone's talking about because it's often just like a huge bummer, and people are getting that everywhere. Even when I talk about sports, I like to find something that's like a little off kilter to offer you, because you can turn on ESPN and watch a bunch of dudes in suits act like they're talking about the war in Syria when they're talking about a whole bunch of millionaires playing a children's game against each other for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like it's very important to see the world that way. I wake up every day in my own life and I'm like, okay, I got to take care of my daughter. I got to go to work. I got to make sure the house is clean. There's all these other things. So when I sit down to do the podcast and talk to people, I want to try to bring them something as best I can that is either a different perspective or is like so silly you can't help but like break out of your stupor. You know what I mean?
Sure. And like for the flip side of it, that's what I love about your podcast is that I was an avid ESPN guy. Like literally all that was ever on television. That's what I knew I could cancel my cable because I'm like, I only watch one channel. I only watch ESPN. You know what I'm saying? So with your podcast,
you don't miss it.
With your podcast, I like that it's not guys in suits with some fucking ulterior motive. You know, I like that you're a straight up guy that I can relate to personally to like make fun of some shit that I thought I wanted made fun of in sports. Like you catch the exact moments that it's like, oh shit, beautiful, perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like the Sammy Sosa thing. We were seeing eye to eye, like we were on the money. Where I'm like, did you see this shit? You're like, I was just gonna ask you the same.
Yeah, we've been chasing. You know, I think I'm going to close the door on the Sammy Sosa becoming a white guy thing because at this point it feels like low-hanging fruit. But that was really the first time when me and you were like on the same page on some sports shit. Like, now this is silly. This is hysterical. You know?
You're absolutely right because I even brought it up because it was like we touched on it last time, but I'm kind of over it now. Like at this point, it's like, no, you know what? You're so committed,
bro. So happy.
Yeah, I was like, that's exactly what it is.
If he looks sad or like someone was forcing him to do it, I'd be like, Sammy, what are you doing? You brought me so many great memories. The world shit on you because you did what everyone else was doing, and that except excelling at a super high level. And then, you pop up, I'm a different person than I was when I was at the age where I thought Sammy was the shit. Well, I can still think he's the shit now. He's a different person and a different race. I can't. He was just like, look, I'm happy. He looked so happy as a cowboy.
Yeah, and that's why I brought it up. It really came full circle because I saw when you said the cowboy, that was like the cherry on top. I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, this dude is genuinely enjoying his life. And I was like, this was the craziest thing 6 months ago. But at this point, I'm like, I don't even have any words for you, Sammy. Like, you know what, bro? God bless you.
Do your thing. How much joy did you bring me? I don't know you. I wasn't in the cage taking those swings. I didn't, have to go in front of Congress and be like, I'm very sorry. I didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
you did. If you're happy, I'm happy for you, man.
And that's something. Before we get back into the Trump thing and things go too dark, I wanted to.
Damn it, we did it again.
It's almost nice to not talk about it. So maybe if it doesn't come up, we won't have to. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about like separating what we see as fans from people's life. I think that's a crazy gray area that I didn't realize happened until I say some stupid shit on something that I I forget what we were talking about earlier. It just slipped my mind, but with like rap is garbage. Like people would take that small moment and they'll judge your whole podcast and your whole brand off that one moment. Or when I call Tupac a ballerina, it's like that every time they say
it's a joke.
Right, it's like it's a fucking joke. You got to separate.
If you listen to your podcast, who the fuck is going to think that you don't have complicated thoughts? Like you're like, oh, but Tupac, he's a ballerina, and that's the end of that conversation. That's King Christ, and this is the Tupac is a ballerina podcast. Like,
and have a good day. Have a day you deserve, right? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fucking ridiculous. Don't worry about it.
But as far as artists, I saw this thing where Denzel Washington, he had to. When he said he wanted to, well, after the Training Day is like my favorite movie of all time, top 2, and I don't know if it's 2, so.
It's solid as fuck, yeah.
So I saw this thing where the NAACP came down on him, like they were showing up at the set, like, yo, you can't play this role. It's gonna put black people in a bad light, where we don't want to be seen as dirty cops. And you know what his response was? I saw that shit and I'm like, damn. I was like, I'm like, that's fucked up. He can't be an artist now. Like, I saw it and I was like, that's a weird moment. Cause I was like, now nobody said anything about Al Pacino and Scarface. And that was his response. He said like Robert De Niro and these guys could play mobsters and everyone accepts them and sees them for who they are in their regular life. He's like, but if I do this, it's going to put me in a bad situation. And I'm like, damn, I didn't realize it happened at that level also, where people.
Well, if you think about it too, I'm sorry, I'm going to cut.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so on that same note, it's like, it was a really underrated group of dudes making movies are the Hughes brothers, right? If you look at what they did, Menace to Society, Dead Presidents, From Hell, all 3 of those
American
movies
Pimp.
American Pimp, yeah. But especially those 3, like the big 3, their trinity of films are really dope, and they're similar to that. They were like, we're going to use gang violence in South Central as a backdrop, except for From Hell. They were like, let's be Hennegram Booth, but you heard it. So but like those first 2 movies, you're like, we'll use that as a backdrop to make a gangster movie. That's why in Menace to Society, Kane is doing the overdubs. It's a direct homage to Goodfellas and some of the other mobster kind of movies, and that's why they're not like banging on colors or set tripping in that movie. It's just gangster shit. That was like their intention when they made that movie.
Right.
And I think that like if you read more into that, you're really limiting your ability to appreciate what they made. You know what I mean? In the same way like you're talking about with Training Day. Like
100%.
Like,
100%.
they played this role that was tailor-made for him. I will say, as a caveat to that, though, hold on, and are we back on? Oh, you're breaking up on me a little bit. You got me there?
Good, yeah, you're good.
All right, sorry. But so I was going to say, though, as like a caveat to that, like, people trip because Denzel got an Oscar, and the Oscars are stupid, too. Let's not forget
they're
that.
totally
Any industry award is fucking retarded, and if you're concerned about that or how people are represented or who said what, you need additional hobbies in your life. Like you're watching award shows that people who make movies give to each other. You know?
It's like seeing your lawyer talk to each other. You know?
I love you. I'm awesome. You're awesome. Let's be that. Fuck all that. None of that has anything to do with anything. I mean, Denzel won the Oscar for Training Day because he should have won the Oscar for Malcolm X, in the same way that Russell Crowe won the Oscar for Gladiator when he should have won it for Beautiful Mind. You know,
100%.
Truly get around to giving it to people. I went way off track, but either way, the end up.
No, I'm with you, and that was my thing with it. Also, it's like I tried to find and I couldn't because I wanted to bring it up on the podcast. I'm like, I wonder if the NAACP went to him like, yo, I don't want you to play this part in Glory. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, you gotta look at both sides of it. I looked at him as, I respect him as an artist, and I obviously fucking get.
Yeah, or Glory. He could have won an Academy Award for Glory too easy. Yeah, sorry.
I think he got, and I don't care, like, because I'm totally with you. I don't care about that, the award. Yeah. I think he got something for that, like an Oscar or some shit. I don't know.
He's been recognized. Who the fuck sees Denzel Washington is like, that guy's a hack.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? No, he's like, that guy. He always plays the same guy.
Yeah, no,
it's not that.
100%.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
And you know, I was gonna bring up the because with that same idea of things.
Yeah, so in his head though, when the NAACP showed up, he's like, "You do realize I played Malcolm X, didn't get an award. I'm making less money because of that. This is a gimme. Like I'm just gonna be like me on steroids and definitely. What the fuck are you doing here?
100%.
Like, why are you on my set? Like, what do you mean? I'm in here like slapping this white boy around and feeding him heroin or whatever. Like, what's wrong with what I'm doing here?
Sir, didn't know you like to get wet though. You know?
Yeah. I got 8 of the most popular.
Yeah, that's
Hispanic characters and acting sitting around the table. I'm doing fine here. We're doing okay. And the people trip. Can I segue into this Bruno Mars thing for a minute?
Please.
Is that okay?
Please.
I know I'm trying to sound like Alex Jones. But,
no, I'm rolling.
So
and I'm going to tell you, I didn't really look into it. So what you're telling me, it will be the first time I give my opinion on it. I didn't tweet about it. I wanted to, but I didn't know enough. So
I did, and I deleted my tweet because talking about these things is retarded and only gives air to things that should be suffocated. But
you're a man of the people.
Entitled to her opinion, I don't know who she is. Apparently, she's somebody because it's been like widely broadcast. But she is sitting at the end of a table, clearly having like a discussion about identity politics or something with this big group of people, and she says she hates Bruno Mars because he's a cultural appropriator and that his music is helping whitewash the originators of funk, and that what she said was Bobby Brown didn't win an Album of the Year award, but Bruno Mars did. And I think that every word that came out of her mouth was ridiculous. And I can appreciate in the sense, it's like you talked about with Trump, you know,
sure.
Like part of what was appealing to Trump, to the guy across the street from you and the kid in Louisiana, was that someone was coming on TV and telling them they were a victim, right?
Sure.
And it's very important to people, or it's at least very attractive to people to be like, I'm a victim. The problem I have with that is there is a shitload of people who really are victims of things, and there's entire races of people who are being victimized by things. But when you co-opt that to be like, I hate Bruno Mars because he's funky as fuck, I feel like you're exploiting people who actually require attention, like people who live in neighborhoods in Chicago where, so how the fuck are all these automatic Glocks flooding this neighborhood? Like, why the kids living in Tennessee, like, why is this chemical plant just like pouring poison into their water? You know, like they're growing with arms growing out of their eyes. But I see a young, attractive woman on the internet with this huge following being like, Bruno Mars is responsible for all the socioeconomic problems in the Western world because he's funky as fuck. Bruno Mars is a bad motherfucker. And listen, it took me a long time to realize that. And what that young lady's life experiences have failed to teach her, her lack of traveling the world, is that bad motherfuckers come in all shapes and colors. Talent is sneaky as shit. And I'm not discounting the fact that, like, there have been a lot of times where people were exploited by the music industry. And in the 50s and 60s, it was directly a racial thing. But Barry Gordy came out, he was like, look, I'll just exploit my own people. You know, and so we sort of, in some respects, like, leveled the playing field there. Like, now you could be any colored person and steal music from people. You know, like, the music industry in that respect has always been very dynamic and weird. But Bruno Mars is not responsible for any of that. And calling Bruno Mars a cultural appropriator, to me, says you need to get funkier. If you believe that, you need to tighten it up. Because I don't think there's a funk act out there that's better than Bruno Mars that's not getting any shine because of him.
And you know, I've when you mentioned it, I actually there's like the clip is like exactly 2 minutes and 9 seconds, and I'm looking for it now. But the reason I didn't watch it was because of that. It was like, look, man, I'm like, Bruno Mars isn't out on the street on Instagram, standing on fucking Compton blocks wearing gold chains, throwing up gang signs. He's giving us that 90s feel of music. I'm like, if
he's got us some 60s, 70s shit, bro. He's going Parliament on motherfuckers too. Like, yeah, he's bad.
Like, that's what I'm saying. He's giving us a genre that hasn't been produced in years. And I really looked at it and I'm like, and I'm telling you, if he was doing anything else, that's the reason that the whole thing didn't have an argument to me. Because I was like, if he was doing anything else, if it was in his real life, maybe I would be open to that. I'm like, but this is just music. I was like,
right.
What? No. I was like, go find a fucking rapper that talks about sipping lean and fucking taking Xans and all that other shit, and go get him. Because what he's doing is destroy. Like, when Future talks about perks and Molly and Percocet at the same time, I'm like, no, go get him, because these kids are trying that. Yeah. Like, Bruno Mars is just he's just fucking around with music.
And you know who, I'm telling you too, who's kicking that funky shit right now? People need the funk. I'm a strong believer in people need the funk.
No, that's a fact.
I'll go over here and pull out my Parliament vinyls and put them on your podcast. Like, people need the funk. So you must have it. And I didn't like Bruno Mars when he first came out because he was a pop artist. I didn't hate him. I was just like, guy's not making music for me. I don't want to hear that.
I'm gonna tell you the other shit of it, that I liked him more then. Like, I like him less now, even though he's bringing the funk. I get it, because I just respect him as an artist. I can't say, oh, he's not making music I like, fuck him. I can't do that.
Yeah, and even if it's not my cup of tea, you won't like the music. Because a lot of people make music where I'm like, man, that is quality. It's not I don't want to listen to it, but that's put together well. You know what I mean? And I think that video is super unfair, because it's basically, her argument is like, music should somehow be, I feel like she's arguing that you should listen to subpar music if it's made by somebody with the same melanin count as you for that specific reason. And that's silly as hell.
That's the crazy shit that I try not to, like, you can't, because it's both sides of it. That it's just like, look, I get what you're saying, and you're not. I'm like, you're not far off, but like not Bruno Mars. Like,
so there's something there. I'm not.
Right, that's it. Right. Nah, and I know you're smarter than that. Like, I know you're not totally avoiding her whole argument. That's why I'm smarter than that. That I have to avoid sorting it because I'm on the other side of it. That I'm like, nah. I'm like, listen, I'm black every single day. I do not put how I feel in Bruno Mars' hands. No. Like I'm like,
you're a black man in America. Like, Bruno Mars music is not
Bruno
the
Mars
most
is the last motherfucker that's gonna speak for me.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna just take the music. I'm gonna take the music for what it is.
Worrying about I have these responsibilities and I'm a mouthpiece for the culture, but Bruno Mars is funky, and I gotta get on that. I need to be focused on that. That bass line was too funky for that Mexican or whatever he is. But I'm just saying.
Focus on the funk. That's a fucking fact.
No. The funk is for not focusing. You think George Clinton was focused? Right? That girl needs a history lesson. You think George Clinton was focused on anything? Reality was collapsing in on that man every moment of his life. He was out of there. So before we close this out, let me go grab another beer real quick.
Yeah.
Give me like 30 seconds.
No doubt.
I'm right back. Actually, you probably can still hear me because I got my case on.
See, and normally I would, for the listeners, I would pause this, but if you listen back, I forget, like the early 30s, the Him Downstairs episode, that's where the audio got fucked up. And it was long ago, because we're at episode 51 now. But just want to let you know that things are the way they are through past experience. And what I can bring about this podcast is taking everyday situations and making them relate to people like me, people like you, people like Graham from the Cap F Sports Podcast. You know, people that have a job. You know, people that have a family. You know, we're not just internet people just going crazy. All we do is speak from life experience, and that's why with situations like Bruno Mars, I don't necessarily have to Google and play the whole clip exactly what happened, but no, we could take the overall message from that and how people felt about it, and really sit it on a table, dissect it, sit on it, and then and right before we get rid of it, make a fucking joke out of it and move on. And that's what we do. So make sure you go subscribe. First of all, go subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. YouTube is very important. I feel like YouTube is our it's our own network. You know what I'm saying? Like,
our future. Those are our TV stations. Right?
No, that's a fact. Those are definitely our TV stations, you know, and that's where it's
I'm over there Kim Jong-un in the shit out of my channel. I create my own reality. I'm Dr. Who in this motherfucker. Go to my YouTube channel. We're going deep, god damn it.
That's a fucking fact. But make sure you go subscribe. And I was saying before that I normally would have paused it at that moment, paused the recording, but I've learned my lesson. I'm like, I don't exactly know how to work Zoom, but I was like, look, I can make a moment out of the fucking 1 minute he's going to be gone. Just keep this shit rolling.
Well, you know I'm over here, Androids and PCs, slowing shit down anyway.
No, I respect that. I respect
that.
We
roll. We're analog.
You know what? The last podcast I did with the SAD, she was on her MacBook. Her shit was fucked up. My shit was fucked up. Your PC, it holds it down. I got to tell you, like,
it works.
The Samsung is another story. That is like, I think that's crazy. But
it doesn't work.
But as far as the PC and you keep it basic, I fuck with that. Like you have an actual green screen behind you. I fuck with that.
Me, look, check this out. Look at my mixing board over here.
Oh yeah, you kept it. Nah, I fuck with that.
All analog over here.
Yo, I have to tell you though also. I have to tell you also, you inspired me to step my YouTube up. Just so you know, like, so we're clear. I'm like, yo, he always gives a video. I'm like, you know what? That is very important. You know, I really thought I'm like, yeah, you know what? I got to step my game up. And that's why I text you like in fucking 3 a.m. or some shit, whenever I'm on my vampire life shit. And I was like, yo, we gotta definitely step it up. So make sure you guys go subscribe to that. But
yeah, absolutely. And to plug myself, you just type sports with a capital F into whatever you're using, and you will be exposed to some interesting things. And not to get too far off subject, but I did want to tell your listeners, because the sports thing sometimes turns people off, but it's just a jumping off point, or it gives me something to talk about when there's nothing going on. It's a podcast about sports
half the
time, but also way less than that. Because I do like I'm doing with Bo here. I like to just talk about what's going on.
And that's a fact. And you know what you need that I just realized?
To change the name of my podcast and start a different one? It's called the 1 Gram Arty. Ah!
Oh, that's not ill. I like that.
God damn it.
You need an asterisk.
Yeah. Ooh. And that feeds kind of into the baseball thing.
But right there, right at the sport, bing. That little subtle change
should be in the title.
That's what I mean. Like on the title, on the logo, bing, that little spice.
And then everything's an asterisk. I love it.
Come on.
It's gonna happen.
The gray area episode prevails. I said, if I sit down with Graham, I'm gonna have a motherfucking breakthrough. No bullshit.
That's it. And listen, man, I want to tell you too about the CAPF Sports Hotline, where people can hit me up at 847-665-9238. I want to tell you too, feel free to do that, because I jacked it from Theo Vaughn, who's like a very good comedian who has a podcast. I didn't really jack it, but I always wanted to do something like that. And then finally on his podcast, he was like, I got this hotline, and it's through Google Voice. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, no bullshit. When I saw that, that's why
podcast should have a thing like that. You know,
that's why I mentioned it, because when I saw that, I was like, God damn, that's genius. I was like, that is good. And I was like, why did I not think of that? Like, I was like, oh yeah, obviously, like, why wouldn't? What is this email shit? No, fucking video yourself in for all I care. You know what I mean?
I gotta link you up with my guy from Baltimore, Tony, though. And I think we're like several podcasts deep into this. But his podcast is called Podcaviar. And I've definitely got to hook you guys up at some point to have a podcast together. He's real solid dude, and he's real fucking silly. And he just started his hotline.
That's the ball dude?
Yeah.
Okay, I watched an episode with him.
He's been on a couple of episodes.
Yeah, right.
Me and him made music back in the day. We were in the Air Force together. I've known that dude since like basic training, and we just both happened to end up in the same part of the world when it was all said and done. But he's a very creative cat too, man. I think you guys would get along.
And I want to tell you something else about Zoom.
Maybe you got to come down here, because coming down here, you can get on 2 podcasts.
I'm gonna tell you some.
Maybe you could try Acid. Never mind, I'm just kidding.
No, sir. Ass is a little out of my league. But I'll try Edible though.
Someday. At your house. You should try it at your house in a very controlled environment. Don't fly down to Georgia and be like, yes.
I end up in Brazil or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, fuck that.
Some other cool shit about Zoom is you could put a third person in here, so you could split the screen into 3. You could split the screen into 8 if you want.
Yeah, free advertising for whoever Zoom is. Kingbo just put me on this. It's Skype but it doesn't suck. That's the best way I can describe it. Because Skype does all that shit too, but you have to like code it in and call the NSA and ask if it's okay. But this is butter smooth. And I bought it. That's why I bought it up, because like, look, either we could fucking Skype it in and all get into one, or I'm going on my podcast tour a little bit this summer. So trust me, I can make my way down. We can make it happen. One day this is gonna be, because it's gotta be. We spend a weekend together. Content is gonna be the least.
You know what? That could be what we offer to Netflix. Like, yo, listen, trust me, this is a series.
Yeah, on the wall, I had never really considered it, and I was into stand-up comedy. Everyone was like, "Well, you should do it." But I did realize the other day that I have 105 episodes of me just like spewing my own ideas. So I am thinking about getting like 5 minutes together. Like I make myself like a tight 5. Not because I want to be a stand-up comedian, but because if I was like a bar, they're like, "Oh, the machine's broken," I could get up there and be like, "Oh, that's funny about me." But like, but definitely, so I could do like open mics in places and talk about the podcast.
But that's also why I know, and why I said I was going to tighten up the podcast, because you really have that right there is respect for the game. You know what I'm saying? That's respect for the podcast game. When you're like, you know, I could go and get to the basics. Like that's how guys like Jerry Seinfeld started. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't even tell you a bunch of fucking comedians that meant guys like Sinbad. Sinbad was I just saw, you can go watch the interview, the clip. Sinbad just said that when things were happening in places, he was like, oh shit, you know, I would just grab a microphone and go. And I really was like, you know, that's respect for the game. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think I have to. You got to send me that 5 minutes when you finally narrowed it down, because I personally want to.
Some point, yeah.
Your 100 episodes. You did. I felt like I love that you had your dad on the 100th episode. Big shout out to Pops. But I really respected that. Absolutely. I was like, you know what? He's doing this his way. I like that you didn't jump out the window and go try to do something different. 100 episodes is a big deal, man. Like that's a lot of content, a lot of shit out there for people, you know. So you're definitely on the right path.
No, the way my podcast is now, like across all the platforms, audio and video and everything, I have about like 90 people that listen to my podcast regularly, right? And it started out with 10. Like it started out with 10 guys. So I figure my best bet, because it helps me enjoy it, is just keep making a podcast for those 10 guys, because then another 80 people were like, all right, that's all right. You know, and everything's an experiment. Everything is, a step in another direction. I am going to pull it back and kind of start doing one podcast a week more often, so I can add more bells and whistles.
I like that. I like that it was you had like the Joe Rogan effect. It was like I never know. It was kind of cool, that anticipation of like, you never know. Today could be the day. You know, that's a pretty cool aspect of it.
It could.
But
I'm never going to take that away. I mean, I'm going to.
We don't want too many gyms, so we'll have this. We'll have this talk off the record, because I think I just had another moment for you, and I got to mention. So I'm gonna, but we don't want to give listeners. Yeah. But
Jot it down. Okay, all right. Well, look, now before we start like overly wrapping this, I think I said everything I want to say about that Bruno Mars shit. That shit is silly. If you think Bruno Mars sucks, make better music. I think that's probably right.
Yeah, basically like that.
And I think too that goes back to kind of what we were saying about whether music is garbage or not. A lot of times people, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, a lot of times when people tell me somebody's music is garbage, or I think somebody's music is garbage, I think that they're like, oh, well, this dude sold 100 million records. And I'm always like, the Macarena went double diamond. It doesn't mean.
Oh, shit.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't. People don't know shit.
Wow, that's crazy. You're absolutely right.
Super stupid. It's part of my deal with Beyonce. Beyonce sings like crazy. And not to upset the Bayhive or your girls, the Sag. But like,
I was going to say, take it easy on the beat. Well, I don't know what he's about to say, but say this podcast does not approve this message.
Yes, that was a good caveat to this, because here I go. Every artist, like Kelly Clarkson, people with big voices, Adele, all of them at some point use some kind of auto-tune in the studio now, because they could capture a moment and just need to correct one note. It's not the same thing as like auto-tune where it's like...
Yeah, that's not... Right. That's not the same thing. That's just production.
Probably, almost undoubtedly, Beyonce, quote-unquote, uses auto-tune, but that's in the studio. Real artists don't use it live. I doubt Beyonce is one of those people who's using it live. But it's just, like you said, it's the world of technology we live in. People don't live without it. There's a really good... documentary with Neil deGrasse Tyson as the host. It was an episode of Nova Science Now. You can find it online. He interviews the guy who invented autotune, and the interview is from like 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less than that. And the guy who invented autotune was like, basically, it saved money for people in the studio. Like one of the first like big R&B artists to use it was, I believe, God damn it. Yeah, I believe it was Mary J. Blige, was one of the first big R&B artists to use it in the studio, not because she couldn't hit those notes, but because emotionally they would get to these points where one note would be slightly flat, and they could go in and just push it up. And actually what blew that out of the water was Cher. Cher had a producer who had auto-tune, and when she did that,
Right.
did that was when everyone was like, wait, how the fuck did you put that effect? Right? Because it was amazing, because it's not like Cher can't sing, right?
Sure.
But they used that as like an artistic effect, and then, history, the rest is history as far as auto-tune is concerned. So it gets a bad connotation. It gets a connotation like, oh, if you use auto-tune, you can't sing. But like the Bayhive gets so upset every time somebody like farts in a pair of Rockaware jeans that like they don't understand that like every artist is using. That's what the point of that was.
You know what the crazy shit about that is? You really like you just open my mind up to some real shit. But how I looked at it as I was being on the surface of the way that it was said. So I was like, yo, fuck that. You can't say Beyonce used auto-tune. What the fuck wrong with you? Don't. But then when you break it down when you break it down like in a production standpoint, and that's why I said like when you word it the other way, it's like, oh yeah, no, that's different. Everybody uses something, like that's production.
Right.
When you break it down, it's like, oh yeah, but does she need it? No, obviously not. And like you said about does she need it? No, obviously not. I mean,
and Beyonce's never used it even as like an aesthetic effect, like
right.
But it's dope. I mean, it's played now, but it was dope when I first heard it. Like the Cher song, I was like, wow, that's some like, as far as like electronic music goes, how would you live without it?
That's a fact. I remember when Lil Wayne first did it, I was like, oh, this shit is like magical. Like,
yeah.
Oh, shit. Yeah. I mean, he ran it into the ground, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah.
No,
and if you're an artist and the noise that comes out of your throat requires it, that's different. But like you said, people heard her say, and I heard your girl on the podcast was like, wow, what you're not going to do. And I was like, look, calm down, everybody.
You're right.
If you want to close out, I'll tell you about Monique's Netflix deal.
Oh, shit. And you know what also? Right after Monique.
That's silly that we're walking backwards. Though.
Right after Monique, I want to get, no, they'll be all right. You'll be back. I think we should end on gun control. I gotta get your take on what's going on, and that's how we can wrap that Trump shit up, and then we'll move on from there. But please, give me the Monique.
All right, Monique is not funny, right? And I think you said it though on that same podcast, where it's like so you're Netflix and you're out here hemorrhaging money because you understand that Netflix hasn't operated at a profit since they sent DVDs to your house. Like Netflix destroyed video rental, and then since then has lost money every year.
Sure.
Right. So they're out here hemorrhaging money, really latching into the stand-up comedy game, which is super fickle. It's almost worse than picking rappers. You know what I mean? Because like as far as like a number of people trying to be stand-up comedians, the number of people that need specials, and they've really nailed it on a lot of cases. There's a lot of guys I've discovered through Netflix. A lot of stars will release specials, and you're really on, right? So like Chris Rock, for example, when he released his special, I wasn't going to wait to watch that. You know what I mean? Like the next time I had the opportunity to see that, I was clicking on it and I was going to watch it. I mean, Dave Chappelle had the balls to do 2-hour specials. And then on the flip side of that was like, now pay me to watch me work out at the comedy store in LA. Like I'm just out here just talking to the crowd. Right. Pay me for it. Why not? Right?
Sure.
Because you're going to click on it. And I don't give a fuck who it is. Like, for example, I felt like Monique's case was strengthened because I thought like Chris Rock's special seemed a bit thrown together to me. Like it's just my opinion, but it wasn't that like tight stab in the gut that you're used to when Chris Rock drops a special. Where it's just like, oh my God, I can't contain myself, my guts hurt, right?
And I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you brought that up because I felt the same exact way. And that's why that's why when you brought it up, I'm like, no, let's hear it because we could have a real talk about it. And that was my thing with Monique. That it was when Netflix I don't even know if Netflix would have recommended that for me to keep it a ban, but if Netflix did recommend it, it wouldn't have been like, oh shit, I gotta see this. It wouldn't have been like that. With Chris Rock, with Chris Rock, when I saw that shit, I was like, oh shit, play immediately.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
I made sure I had the time set aside. I was sufficiently lubricated. I was, you know what I'm saying? I was like really ready to lose my shit at a new Chris Rock special. But the man's going through a divorce. He's got to get money quickly. He used his name recognition, got a big check, dropped sort of a so-so. It was sort of the Capone album when Noriega was locked up. Like, it was like,
damn. I don't know if it was Capone. God damn.
Yeah, no, it was Capone. Noriega released that fucked up album before Capone and Noriega came back.
But that's also what I wanted to say. That I think the job of comedians kind of was. And that's what I want to talk to you about. You think it shifted? Because with Chris Rock, I feel like it wasn't that gut punch. It wasn't that knockout home run comedy special. I think it was more like he just wanted to get his shit off. Like he gave us a $20 million podcast episode.
Yeah, exactly. God damn. Yeah, he did. No, absolutely. That's a good way to look at it. But as a comedy fan, I'm like, come on, Brad.
But listen, as a comedy fan, I get it.
I watched it. Yeah.
But after watching it, and you realize when you're like, damn, I only laughed out loud like twice in that hour, which is, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I feel like, I don't know, but I was like, but I took a lot in.
I think Chappelle did it right, though, because Chappelle gave you 2 tight-ass hours first. Chappelle gave you 2 hours where he was like, I'm Dave Chappelle. This is the funniest shit I could possibly drop on you with those first 2 specials, right? The first 2.
100%.
Then he wrote it, and he was like, here's me working out. And I felt like his working out was better in a lot of respects than Chris Rock's theater hour.
Oh, 100%. And
so you're Netflix, right? And this is weird. Like, now you've entered a weird thing. You're like, well, shit, we're succeeding with Dave Chappelle, who people were dying for. You could have released a fucking black screen and people would have clicked on it enough to get your money back. But you also just, he brought the fucking house down. And now you just gave Chris Rock a shitload of money and he kind of shit the bed. You're giving weird comedian specials. Like, all of a sudden, John Mulaney is like one of the funniest dudes in the world. Have you seen John Mulaney's stand-up? It's fucking hysterical. And he's like the most goofiest. He looks like the dude who's in your head when a Def Jam comedian's like, and the legend came up to me. And I'm like,
no, that's a fact.
like John Mulaney is like the first.
No, that's a fact. That on.
One of the funniest dudes I've ever seen in my life. So you're dealing with this tumultuous thing, and Monique shows up in your office, and you're like, oh God, how much money do we give Monique, right? Like, not that she's not her decorated thing and blah, 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 blah. I think what turned a lot of people off was she came out of the gate and she was like, this is racial and gender
bias, right.
Discrimination. And I'm like, well, there's no evidence to support that based on the list of people who've gotten big dollar comedy specials. But you're Monique, like, what have you done? What are we putting she didn't even show up like, here, I shot this bomb-ass special.
Right. That was my whole point.
She just showed up and was like, give me money for a special and I'll figure it out from there. And then they were like, here's $500,000. That's ridiculous.
I'm 100%. I'm with you. And also with the SAGs that I think I couldn't remember if I said it on the podcast, and I went back and listened to it, but I think I just went over it. But I wanted to bring it up again that, like, Chappelle did 1,500 shows. Because it's not like he just came out of nowhere. It wasn't like he just came out of nowhere. So even if we...
Bro, Dave Chappelle's been a stand-up comedian since the early 90s.
And that's what I was going to say. Right. Even if he didn't...
He made his money when he did Robin Hood Men in Tights. That was a Mel Brooks movie. That's the king of fucking silly. Mel Brooks is the king of funny-ass, silly shit. He did Blazing Saddles. This man is a genius. And he was like, this kid is funny as fuck. And he put him in Robin Hood Men in Tights. Before he did Robin Hood Men in Tights, he was living on touring on comedy. And that was like the mid-90s. That was way before Chappelle's show or any of that shit. That man has paid his dues. The Parkers was her and a girl who looks like she smells funny and was a long time ago and was about the last time we've seen seen Monique. And I'm not saying she's not funny or classic or a legend.
Right. But that was my whole point. Facts. That was my whole point, is that, like, even if we were gonna make the even fields playing and we went off history, right? And we say we wanted to, we fed into the whole decorated comedian bullshit, which was obviously you're not the most decorated comedian alive.
That's pretty fucking silly. Yeah.
Right. So if we just went history, right? No, she still wouldn't have an argument, right? So even if we cut off the history and said, what have you done in the last 5 years? I like the fucking Monique shit, the movies and shit. Great, I get it. But Dave Chappelle has actually been doing stand-up comedy. He didn't just come out of nowhere like it seems like. No, he did.
Yeah, that's what he's been doing. Right. He didn't try to win an Oscar. He didn't do a movie. And the anticipation for him was so fucking high that you can't even – it's hard to gauge that. They had to give him that number if they wanted to do what was best for them. As far as Monique. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad did you want Dave Chappelle's special when it happened?
12.
25 for
right,
me.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
exactly.
Can we segue though real quick, just a quick dip off?
Yeah.
Face on Love going on the Breakfast Club and talking about Dave Chappelle didn't make black people laugh.
Yo, that was in my notes.
Face on Love, in case people hear this who know that guy, because you're from New York and you have a larger audience than me, not everybody can do gritty urban dramas like Elf, motherfucker. Like, what the fuck? Talking about Dave Chappelle. Oh, season 2. That was Charlie Murphy. The very first Dave Chappelle sketch is the black white supremacist who's blind. Literally, as far as comedy is concerned,
that shit is gold.
Thing that's ever existed. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen, hands down. And I saw a dude shit his pants while rolling down a hill. The funniest thing I've ever seen is the black white supremacist.
No, that's a fact. And and I'm glad you brought that up because it was on my notes for last episode, but we didn't get to it. That was the most ridiculous shit I've ever heard. But there were people like, yo, facts. And I'm like, yo, don't do that. No, don't do that. I'm like, even if you hate Dave Chappelle, you cannot say that Dave Chappelle, not even that he's never made you laugh, because if he's never made you laugh, you're crazy. As soon as you say Dave Chappelle, you think of the best skit he's ever offered you. Like, he has a moment that you're like, oh, this is gold. Like, his whole show to me was, the skits are like, if you got fucking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 timeless skits on your show, don't say that he's not funny or he's never been funny to the black people or his audience predominantly white. Like, no. Dave Chappelle, if you don't even fucking speak English and you watch that shit on mute, that shit is hilarious. Like,
people might hate me, maybe this is one of those things that I shouldn't be talking about, but I look at Face on Love and I'm like, when he said that, he's wearing like gold rim glasses and a watch and a big fur coat or a big like fur-lined coat. He's really in there playing up how successful he is. That money isn't from Three Strikes. That money's from doing a movie with Will Ferrell. Like, and I don't hate you for that. You're a funny dude. You put it in on the grind. The fact that you're in literally the most popular Christmas movie of all time.
Right.
Like, fucking, it goes, It's a Wonderful Life, Christmas Story, Elf. Those are the movies. Good fucking money there is in that, and Face on Love's in that movie. And look, good. I like Face on Love. But then he goes on the radio and is like, oh, the greatest living stand-up comedian never made black people laugh until he linked up with Charlie fucking Murphy. Like, no, he made Charlie Murphy funny. He was like, holy shit, Charlie Murphy's super funny.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, nah, like Charlie Murphy's rest in peace to the GOAT, Charlie Murphy. Charlie Murphy is fucking hilarious.
Agreed.
And Dave Chappelle saw that, like Charlie Murphy, and Harlem Nights is one of my favorite movies, and I know Eddie Murphy put him in all of his movies, but it was always weird to me. I'm like, yo, Charlie Murphy made me laugh more from being with Dave Chappelle than he did with Eddie Murphy.
Ever.
And I'm like, I don't know who was in control. I wasn't there. I don't know who was writing what, but I'm like, look, my whole point was, it's like, yo, he went up there and said these corporate machines are keeping black comedians like him down. And I'm like, you can't go and then shit on the best black comedian. I'm like, it contradicts the fucking argument. Cause I'm like, you can't.
It's silly. It's hating ass nonsense.
And that's what I was thinking. I was like, you sound more like a hater. Like, just say he doesn't make you laugh. Just say you don't like him, and then move on. I'm like,
no, it's spoken by a dude who hasn't seen season 1 of the Chappelle Show recently. That's what that is. And he caught them off guard. Everybody was like, "Oh well, fuck, I don't remember what." What I remember, because I turned on my TV because I loved Half Baked because I was a stoner when I was a teenager, and Dave Chappelle got his own show, and I turned on my TV, and that Clayton Bigsby shit happened in front of my face, into my eyeballs, into my brain. Like, I almost shit my pants. I was rolling around on the floor. No one has ever done anything that's funny ever in history. And it's like Blazing Saddles rolled up into a 30-minute sketch with he's a black dude who's blind, who's a white supremacist.
Genius.
And then all the shit he says, it's hysterical.
And that's what got me. That's what fucked me up. I'm glad it happened to you. No, I'm glad it happened to you also, but I'm glad you mentioned it because when he said it and they were like, oh shit, I don't know. I was like, yo, Clayton Bigsby. That was the first shit. I'm like, yo, the first skit. I was saying it. I literally said it out loud watching it. I was like, yo, Clayton Bigsby, no question.
Yeah. I just turned my phone off. I was like, that can't.
No, they definitely blew it, but what the point is with that is though, like at least we knew and we could call bullshit when we see it. Because when I saw that, I'm like, see now, bro, I see why you ain't getting no Netflix special because this shit.
And you see too though why I don't fuck with Breakfast Club because the only other thing they did in my life was invite Hillary Clinton on, and she said she had hot sauce in her purse. And I was like, damn, Breakfast Club. Every time I turn you on, I'm like, I don't think I want to watch this anymore. You don't want to air to people.
See, the crazy shit about the Breakfast Club is I remember fucking 2011 when they first came on the scene.
Hot sauce.
The crazy shit is that was one of the worst Breakfast Club interviews to me. I remember when they were small right here in New York. It was a Jersey, Connecticut.
Yeah, that was a little
small circuit. Same with Hot 97. I mean, I guess like Hot 97 did the same thing around the same time, but before it went digital, that was just our station. So now that they're all around the world, like I'm like, damn, I watched like almost every. I mean, I don't listen to radio anymore, but now I still watch them on YouTube. And I was looking at that shit, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not gonna say the Breakfast Club changed, but I was like, now when you get to the point where it's just Faison Love, like. When they didn't, that moment be like, I mean, they ended okay, but I was like, even to put this shit out here.
No, you got to put his feet to the fire for that shit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, you can't just let it pass. Like,
you're supposed to be this level of, like, you're the culture, basically. Like, you know, it is. Solve that. Because not to me, I fucking ignore that. But
the interview, I mean, the shit we're talking about the Monique. That's where it happened, Breakfast Club. We're talking about Faison Love. That's where it happened, Breakfast Club. You know, so they are in it. Like, they are giving us those moments.
They can't blow it like that,
they were supposed to put that motherfucker to the fire. They were like you
I know how you about
like, fuck the rest of the show.
What I said out loud was, well, everybody can't. I'm at work. It's like I work in a small office. There's like 2 other people in there wandering around. I've got my earpiece in. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, we all can't be in gritty urban dramas like Elf, motherfucker. And that was what I said out loud into a room full of people. What the fuck is Faison Love talking about? You do not have on those glasses and that watch because of 3 Strikes or your fucking interlude on the Ludacris album. Like you're talking about.
Didn't he have a show for a little bit? I feel like he had a show like on like UPN 9 or whatever. Like I think he had like 2 seasons.
He's been in everything. He wasn't on Steve Harvey. That was Cedric the Entertainer.
Nah, like
he
Robert
was on one of those
Townsend, like
shows,
the other dude he shit on. Robert Townsend had him. They had a show. I can't remember it, but they had some shit on like Channel 11.
Was he in Smart Guy?
Nah, it was that same time. Like, it was that same era. Like, the fucking Mark Cooper show. Like, you know what I'm saying? Hanging with Mr. Cooper. That same...
Yeah, was he on... Either way, he's not Dave Chappelle and shouldn't be talking shit about Dave Chappelle.
I would Google it, but he shit on Dave Chappelle so much, I'm not even going to bother Googling it. Anyway, but I want to end this fucking... Because I think we're pretty much done with that. I want to end this.
Yeah, we're out here tripping.
We've taken this all over the map, which is like
a good time, sir.
it goes back to that meme. You know, I almost wish I didn't put it up, but it was just the timing was perfect.
So perfect.
Yeah, I wish I saved it for this, but I want to talk about gun control for a moment.
All right.
Now, you started it. You lived in Chicago for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Shit's fucked up in Chicago, obviously, we know. Which it's so fucked up they don't even show it on the news anymore. And it's like, even if things were like shaping up for the better, you should show it. Like, you should give us like an update to make things like, look, guys, things are getting better. And I was like, I know that even here in New York, like, some shit happens with a gun here in New York every day. It doesn't make the news anymore. Like, it's not a big deal.
Right, and New York's experiencing a little bit of a rise, sort of back to the heyday.
Right, and shit's fucked up. So I was looking and I'm like, now school shootings are obviously horrible tragedies. You know, and I was talking to a friend of mine, Shelly, friend of the show, family of the show, and she was saying like that kids do active shooter. She didn't know kids do active shooter drills. And I was and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, we did that shit after Columbine. We did a couple. I was like, now that's like regular practice in school, which is fucked up and heartbreaking. Yeah. But for us, I'm like, we did. I was
talking to my daughter about that, like literally yesterday. She was talking about how they have code red drills. And she was like, oh, well, we hide behind this thing. And then, you know, I'm pretty active, obviously, in the single family active in my daughter's school. So, like,
sure.
She showed me the thing she was hiding behind. And it was one of the first times in my life I've been, like, super direct with my daughter. And I was like, look, if they call a code red, it means move your ass. Because she'll be like, oh, well, it means you got to hide behind this. And, like, it's like they teach it to him like it's some kind of game. And I told her, and I felt bad the next day because I was talking to my little girl. And I was like, look, code red means move your ass. Like, you need to be, like, not messing around. Don't talk to your friends. That means you hide in anything that your body fits in. And like afterwards, she had this look on her face, like, "Who are you? Like, what kind of darkness are you explaining?"
Sure.
And I was like, "Baby, look, like this is like if they call a real one and you're out on the playground." I was like, "I don't care." I was like, "Run off into the woods." I was like, "Run off into the neighborhood." Like I was like, "You just if they call, just run away." You know, and that's a world I live in because in this country, at one point, a crazy person went to an elementary school, fam, an elementary school. Like when Newtown happened, I'll tell you, I'm like someone who's like overly informed, and I like to read about things. And I read news, and mostly it's because I have an office job and I don't do a lot, so I read a lot of news. And even before this, I've always been interested in being informed. When the shooting in Newtown, Connecticut happened, and I heard the broad strokes, I couldn't listen. I couldn't read it. I didn't want to see anything. I flipped past CNN when fucking one of those salt and pepper motherfuckers was sitting out on the corner like, and the families continue to grieve. Because I knew nothing was going to happen. What really happened was a conspiracy was born that, oh, this was all made up so people could take our guns. And I knew then that nobody was going to take anybody's guns. Sure. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing to it. And we live in a world where we have to kind of face that every day. And regardless of my feelings on gun control, I own guns, but I don't let owning guns affect my political views.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I own guns. If someone's like, people shouldn't own machine guns and people with mental illness history shouldn't be allowed to own guns, I don't stand up against that. And neither do any actual responsible gun owners. You know what I mean? Like these extreme ideological divides on guns are all developed by lobbyists. You know what I mean? Like we're all just out here living in a country where there's more guns than people, right? Which is like us and I think Afghanistan have those distinctions. Right. And like,
I just played Risk yesterday, and I had Afghanistan. It was a weird moment, but go ahead.
I saw you guys were playing Risk. What was up with the little? I'll ask you because I was like, I thought the pieces were all different shapes.
Oh, they changed. That was my first time seeing them. Also, the pieces changed.
Yeah, they did change. But anyway, like,
but I'm with
whatever.
you.
All that nonsense I was saying is to lead up to this. There's been a bunch of bullshit goes on with guns. You make them illegal, there's more gun violence. You make them super available, there's more gun violence. Like, it's a very complicated thing when you live in like a civilized Western world where there's more guns than people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, it's so unbelievably horrifying. And whether you're for more or for less, or you know, most reasonable people want some level of institutionalized monitoring of who gets high-powered assault rifles. Even if you believe that, what's going to happen is what the politicians do, and they get the money. People are like, oh, well, don't vote for people who get money from the NRA. Well, the person who takes that seat is going to get that money from the NRA, and everything is going to remain at like a certain level. That was sort of the crux of the conspiracy theory me and Griff dealt with on episode 105 of the Sports with Capital podcast, is that, like, you know, those guns are going to exist, and the NRA is going to ensure that they dump enough money into legislation to ensure that there's a demand for X amount of guns.
Sure.
You know, when Obama was president, more guns were sold than ever. Like, every time there was a mass shooting when Obama was president, he would go on TV and be like, we got to do something, and everyone would go out and buy shitloads of guns. Because the NRA would lead them to believe, they're like, oh, Obama's on TV talking about guns. He's about to take them. So they would jack up the price, and everybody would buy it.
Sure. And
you know
that's also, I wanted to get into that also. Shelly had a question for me that I wrote down, and I was like, you know what? I don't have the answer to that, but I'll ask Graham because I'm going to talk to him on Sunday. So Shelly wants to know, how does the government justify selling high-powered assault rifles? Because that's her question. But I do know that, like, I was talking about that it's a fucking game. Like, politicians, this is money involved. I was like, you think they're just going to stop selling guns? I'm like, no. And like you said, there's more guns than people. That means there was money made and profit made off. So I feel like that was the answer. Like, that was like, it's like let's
get all the way into this. I got to take a witness.
Yeah, done. Cool. Us virtually being at a urinal. Like,
we're at a bar. We just left the bar. We had to go.
Yeah, word up, basically.
All right. But so, anyway, I walk us back, get us back. And I'm back.
There you go. Yo, that shit is, you got a gift for that. Because, see, me, those moments, I'm good. See, I also noticed that you say you can't, you have trouble ending podcasts, which I think is hilarious. But you're great at, like, when you're great at bringing us back. I'm fucking terrible at steering the ship back. I'm like, where were we? I'm like, fuck it, let's move on.
No, I just like to try to do it like a corny sports announcer who'll be like, oh, and someone's out on the field, we're going to commercial. And they're like, oh, fuck it. And we're back. Oh, sorry about that. And we're back.
Yeah, we were talking about
in my personal life a lot. So I'll be talking to somebody ready, 3, 2, 1, go.
And we're back. Exactly. But we were talking about, I know the reasons behind why the government sells high-powered assault rifles. But what I wanted to, when Shelly asked it, I was like, oh shit, I don't have the answer. Is that, or maybe, I at least had got to ask the question, is that, like, how do they justify it, though?
Well, like I said, okay, so I was a bit obtuse about that when I was saying that it's like, oh, the lobbyists just give people money and everybody's
but I'm with you.
Some of it is that, but also what it is that in this country, we really, like, since Bill Clinton, have been struggling to find a way to define what an assault rifle is, right? Or to define what, like, we define machine guns differently, right? Like, I own an AK-47. I can put a big clip in it, right? Technically, it's a rifle, just a regular rifle, because when I squeeze the trigger, a round comes out. And if I hold it down, only one round comes out, right?
Sure.
But that's a bit silly, because if I go like this, every time, see my finger flicking there? Every time my finger does that, a 7.62 by 3.9 round comes out that could, like, go through a cinder block. You know, it could go through a house, could go through a window, could easily go through the panel of almost any vehicle you could come up with. In some cases, Pierce's most just the dummy target round has so much of a charge behind it, it could go through a lot of like body armor, right?
Wow.
But for some reason, I am allowed to own that because it's a rifle. Because when you squeeze the trigger, one bullet comes out. But you can go like this, and you have 100 rounds to work with, and there's people like, that's not an assault rifle. To me, that's silly. It's all so silly. It's such a murky world because I own guns. But I own guns in the sense of like I like to go to the gun range. I like guns in the same way I like fireworks. And I definitely know myself well enough to know that when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I have an AK-47 in my house. How is that possible?
Right.
I'm not a Chechen rebel. Like, I'm not like I don't live in a hovel in the Ukraine, and I'm worried about like sending off Soviet troops.
Right.
And I went to a store, and I walked in, and I gave them like some pieces of paper, and they were like, here's a machine gun. That's how I see it. I'm like, here's a machine gun. And that's sort of the deal with bump stocks. For listeners who may be confused about what a bump stock is, a bump stock is an attachment for an assault rifle, and they make them for a lot of different rifles that basically, like how I was describing this, the gun shoots as fast as you can squeeze the trigger. The bump stock is equipped with a big, like, super taut spring. So if you squeeze the trigger and keep your finger in the same position, the trigger will keep clicking off of your finger. You see what I'm saying? Like, because there's a spring in the stock. So now it is a machine gun. And I'm not sure what we're splitting hairs over there. And despite the fact that I own them and understand how they work and understand that other people own them, I don't think they should. I don't think regular people on the street should have access to those kinds of firearms, but they do, and now that they have for a great period of time, and we're having trouble defining what an assault rifle is, the reality is there's 400 million guns in this country and 300 million people. Like, so
sure.
The solution is going to have very little access to firearms.
Let me ask you this: would you turn I gave as you can see, you would turn your guns in?
Yep. Here's the deal with that. Okay. Oh, yeah. I'm glad you asked me this. So, a lot of people, especially down here in Georgia where I live, a lot of people are like, you can get my gun when you pry for my cold dead fingers. They're like, I have my gun and I'm never turning it in even if they declare martial law. Well, here's the reality, right? Like, let's say you have a gun and they really want it, right? The government, U.S. government wants your gun. And you're like, from my cold dead fingers, they'll oblige you. Like, I don't give a fuck what kind of prepper you are. Like, if the Marines come rappelling in your windows, or like the SWAT team bust in your door, you're not Charles Bronson. Like, they'll take your gun by shooting the shit out of you. They shoot people all the time who don't have guns. They're not going to shoot you. You're like, they're blowing a bullhorn in your house, like, come on out. You're like, I got a lot of guns and I'm going to shoot the shit out of you. They're like, okay. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go now. He's gonna shoot. You know, I get naive sometimes. So I said, because I talked about it last episode.
The people are entitled to that opinion about guns, but that's not how it's gonna shake out.
You're 100% right.
Rains out the back of your head, like poke your head around the corner. They're gonna get you.
That's a
fact.
They're gonna get you. That is a fucking fact.
I don't know if you remember that though either, because like during Obama's presidency, drone strikes became very prevalent, like how we use drone strikes to extrajudiciously kill terrorists abroad. Obama killed a U.S. citizen abroad. God damn it, I can't remember what. Maybe it was in Pakistan. But anyway, he was a U.S. citizen, but he was clearly like a terrorist and behind all these terrorist acts. So Obama used an executive decision to kill that dude with a robot in the sky, right, who shot a missile at him and killed him. And then he went to an interview, and they were like, but obviously he would never use one of these drone strikes domestically. Here's where Obama let me down. I was like, just say no. To be like, yeah, no, of course not. that we would never do anything like that. And he was like, I can't rule it out. And I was like, God damn it! God damn it! You could have just said no. That's my beef with the Patriot Act. It's crazy. I was like, we were doing all this stuff before, and I expected Obama to be like, well, I'm not re-signing that. That's Bush's spying on everybody nonsense. He was like, fuck yeah, executive branch, bitch. Like, it was like executive federal power. Let's expand it to the point where we can put an insane person in charge of it.
And that's why you know, my whole thing on gun control and in politics period is like we have no control over it. Oh, because Obama is my guy, don't get me wrong, but I'm not that ridiculous. I'm smarter than that to act like that shit doesn't happen. Like, oh, don't say that. Like no, because you're absolutely right. Like, you could have just said, oh no, as American people, it's whatever spice politicians got to put on it. He was
the man with that. Yeah. He told me all kinds of shit I wanted to hear that didn't happen, and I was like, I would just go to bed feeling better. I'd be like, oh, that bad motherfucker, and I'd go to sleep.
I'd be like, you know what, the world's gonna be okay. Like,
yeah, I wouldn't go like, oh, okay, well, if he has to go to talk to some wacky world leader, he's gonna do fine. That's the difference. That's the only difference for me with Trump is I'm like, God damn it, everybody sees you. Like, everybody sees, stop doing that. You know, like, it's absolutely insane. But I think that, you know what? That's the reality.
Before we get into
Obama's presidency was an expansion of executive federal power, but I just felt more comfortable with it when he was doing it. But he re-signed the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act bothered me when Bush signed it. Because I was like, yeah, I already assume you kidnap people and electrocute them and pour water on their head. You don't have to put it in writing.
Oh, yeah. No, that was another one. With George Bush they kind of were like, well, you know, shit is effective sometimes. I'm like, wait, they're admitting to this? I was like, this is real. I was like, this shit is not normal.
Bro, Obama re-signed it. And I'll tell you another thing. And Obama's my guy. I voted for him because I understand how the presidency works. It's a very silly position. I was like, oh, a black dude from the south side of Chicago could be president. I want in on this. Plus, he was like, made me feel good about who I was. You know what I mean? And he got into office and re-signed the Patriot Act and then killed like an obscene amount of people with robots from the sky. And then, remember Snowden?
Yeah, of course.
Exposed the federal government for a huge unconstitutional overreach into our privacy. In the same day, it was on Martin Luther King Day, I watched Obama give a speech where he was like, and this is a time to venerate people who saw unfair laws and said something about them, you know, true patriots who saw that laws were unfair. And later the same evening was like, oh, Eric Snowden's a traitor, and we were going to tell you guys about this shit, but he is a party pooper. You know what I'm saying? It's all the same thing. You're just being presented with some shit that, like, makes you feel better. And even despite all that, I felt better when Obama was president because I felt like he would go into meetings having had 8 hours of sleep. You know what I'm saying? Or, like, show up to things prepared to talk to people. But it's still just like, here's your guy who's the representative of the executive branch of your government whose powers have just, like, expanded. And he even said, he was like, oh, we'll cut back on some of the Patriot Act stuff, but he didn't. He approved billions of dollars for the expansion of things that monitor and control and record what you say. And, like, he, you know, because that's where the money
is. Like I said.
And Trump says all this crazy shit. He's like, I'm going to kick all these Mexicans out. But he's not going to do any of that. He says that, and then over here, he's like, here's where the real money is. Like, here's
of course, and I always say that shit, like with as far as this presidency. I'm like, look, we really get caught. Like, I'm like, the last thing I give a fuck about is Stormy Daniels. Like, this is the last shit I want to see on the news. I'm like, this is the most regular thing done. Like, I'm like,
it's crazy to think about though. Like, if Obama had that scandal, they would have buried him. Like, he did have to live clean. I'm not taking that from him.
I heard someone say that. I heard someone say that, like, if Obama. I'm like, yo, we gotta stop doing the if Obama because that's yeah. I'm like, see, this is. I'm like, no, that's feeding into the fuck shit. Like,
And it's different because he's black. I mean, that's 100% why.
That's why I'm like, see, this is fucked up. I'm like, this is fucked up. You can't F Obama. I'm like, all of it, this is fucked up. Like,
it is true. I didn't want to sound like I was moving away from my guy too hard, but that's why. Because he was the president of America and he was black. I mean, you don't have to go like super deep into that to be like, well, how come he couldn't have fucked a porn star? Well,
like, nah, he had to keep it. He had to keep it so squeaky. Obama couldn't drop a tissue on a New York City floor. Like he couldn't. He had to keep it squeaky fucking clean.
If he was slow to put his heart on his hand on his chest during the national anthem, people were like, that piece of shit.
No, and we knew exactly where it was coming from. You know,
yeah,
like,
we got the president. We earned this president with all that bullshit. Like,
and that's and I really think about with him, like all the shit that's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. I'm like, the Stormy Daniels shit is what I expected from him. I'm like, that's all I thought it was gonna, you know, I'm like, that and some money is all I thought it was gonna be involved. And now with this shit where it's going,
yeah, like treason and shit in the works.
Yeah, like, so I gotta ask you, like, what is your stance on it? Like, what are you thinking when you put on the news in the morning? Yo, you did that. You did that on your podcast.
That's what I think every morning. I mean, the reality is this.
Yo, you did that shit on your podcast for like 4 minutes, and that shit was hilarious.
Those were my two most watched podcasts until very recently. It was the one I did with you, the first one I did with you, and then the one where I made fart sounds for 6 minutes.
No.
I'm not looking at the metrics anymore. When I get an email and someone's like, "We want to advertise on your podcast," that's great because I'm done looking at the metrics. I don't know what to want. But that is how I feel when I get up in the morning because I don't know, man. From the beginning with Trump, you live in New York. Trump's been a New York real estate swindler who was a lifelong Democrat who held weird ideologies, but they all had to do with money and property and blah, 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 blah. And he concocted this weird-ass scheme to run for president. He's over the age of 70 in what is largely the most stressful job in the world. He's worth like $1 billion, and he's doing a job where you get $500,000 a year. It's silly as fuck. It's so stupid. And the shit, like the weird legislation he puts out there, they got the tax bill across, which, fucks the middle class to some extent and, definitely shits on teachers and gives. He passed the tax bill that had a bunch of shit about private jets in it. Like, none of it.
Right. Sure.
You know what I mean? Donald Trump is the president now, and he's not doing anything that's overly surprising. And at this point, I'm just kind of morbidly curious with listening to what he says every day. Because he has like a third-grade vocabulary. But he's also like really getting to the point of what he's doing. I just saw today, he was like, if I was presidential, you people would be bored. And I was like, well, there you go. There's your broken clock is right twice a day
yeah.
thing that Donald Trump said. He did after the shooting in Florida. He was like, well, Democrats and Republicans sat around doing nothing while all this happened. I'm going to do something. And I was like, out of all your tweets, you're not wrong.
And that's, see, how do you feel like he's going to affect gun control? Because I saw he flip-flopped a little bit. And,
yeah.
and the whole point of this shit is it's fucking heartbreaking that our kids are in schools practicing active shooter drills in the middle of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like they wanted to take prayer out of school and then put in fucking active shooter drill. Is this what's going on here? So
yeah, I'm okay with it.
Actually affects something. Like he's at a weird moment where Obama, like I get it, it went past 8 years, but when he's being so scrutinized, Obama, that's where it was like he was doing so other shit right. It's fucking ridiculous. And
think about it from Obama's perspective too, is that he would go on TV after mass shootings and he would be like, look,
right. That's why I was able to keep going. Right.
Direct speech, and he would say, look, I know a lot of people don't want me to say this, but I'm expecting Congress to figure something out here. And that's what he would do. And that was brilliant. And that was genuine.
But it was also, at the same time of it, it was also that fucking NRA, like they got to be against that for Democrat purposes. And I hate this Democrat Republican shit.
But also that was a problem for Obama, though, was that every time he went on TV and all he said was like, please, somebody do something, a big chunk of the news media on either side would be like, Obama asked everybody to turn their guns in, fucking get rid of your guns. And gun sales would skyrocket, and like gun regulations would fall off the face of the earth at like local and state levels. Because he, as Obama, was like, hey, somebody should do something about it.
But see, Trump just ignoring it puts more of a spotlight on it. So, like, I saw him flip-flop. So what do you think he's going to do? Like, what?
Nothing. We'll just wait. This is it. Well, I mean, you pick a president and put him in there. What's he going to do? Nothing. Where are we going with this? Nowhere. There's so many guns. You can't put the gun genie back in the bottle now. You could definitely do things about like preventing mentally ill people from getting guns, creating a universal background check system, a nationwide registry. But these are things that like moderate gun owners and responsible gun owners have been asking for years. The Congress has just failed to deliver on. When Obama was president, they put through a bill for a universal background check, like that was like federal, not just for the state you lived in. Right. They put in for one for a registry, like, okay, if you buy a gun that can accept X amount of capacity of rounds, you're on like a list that is, federally checkable based on the serial number of the firearm you bought. And Congress was like, fuck you. And they didn't give it to anybody, even despite the fact that even responsible gun owners wanted those things. Right. So it's one of those very sad, fucking ironic things that like nobody's going to get what they want because of Congress. And it's not going to, the people who support those ideas on either extreme end of the spectrum are like not really the consensus. And Congress isn't going to respect the consensus anyway.
And that's what I think the most fucked up part to me is like, so we just going to keep counting school shootings? You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, like that's really what it is. It's fucked up. Like it really is fucked up.
You can't give teachers guns because how long is it until a teacher shoots a student? Definitely the solution to guns is more guns.
if September when school started, I shouldn't even laugh, but I'm laughing because I would bet money on it. In September when school started, it would be.
When I was in high school, I'd have been the guy. It'd have been my picture on a billboard, like "Take guns back from teachers." With a picture of me.
Exactly.
So a substitute.
Oh, forget about it. Oh my God! Wow.
Had a gun when you were in high school. A substitute. She shot everybody in the classroom across the hall, and the people who wandered into her room like, oh yeah, no, I'm calling you, and you were across the hall in the other class like, oh yeah, no, I'm gay. Like,
and she would have shot the fucking principal for
putting her in there.
Wow, that's some shit. That's some crazy shit.
She doesn't know what the deal is with 6-period physics. These people are savages. You can't give them an inch. And you're fucking.
That's the fucked up shit. That if you give teachers guns, we're gonna start counting how many teachers shoot up schools now. At this
point. We're gonna be way less worried about school shootings and way more worried about teachers. Like, thank you.
Wow, it's not gonna be going poster. It's gonna be going fucking curriculum.
Yeah.
It's gonna be going fucking.
You're already getting screwed. Teachers already aren't paid enough. They're super underappreciated. They're responsible for people's kids all day. People's kids. Just people's kids. Like, you just go out in the street and you're like, hey, all 50 of you. Give me your shit. Let's hope this works out.
That is some shit.
Yeah. We've been very silly. Did we get anything done here, man?
No.
Are we okay?
The beauty of it. All right. because you know what?
I just hope I didn't blow it.
All the gray area episode is make a fucking joke out of everything because that's all it is anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because
we set out with some lofty goals.
Seriously, because like
we're the Obama of podcasts. Look, I'm being controversial.
There you go. I said that to say this podcast once again gives a disclaimer, and we do not stand behind that statement. Man, you know what? I'll give real. I say
we're charming. We're charming, but still the face of evil.
That's a fucking fact. But listen, man, I always enjoy having you on, man. Like I say, I love what you do with the sports podcast. You do a great fucking job. So, are you and Griff back? Are you guys back together? Like doing your thing now?
It's a very complicated relationship there. I'll just tell people that I am basically the face of the podcast, and between Griff and Flea and my guests, everybody gets together. We're all busy people. I'm just a maniac, and I'm obsessed with doing my podcast. And I encourage your listeners to check me out. I don't want them to think that it's a sports podcast. Like, if it is an episode that's overly sports related, it'll be clear.
I gotta say, it's kind of the same. It's like the I Say That to Say This podcast with sports, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been down from the very early days. I think I was about 30 episodes in when me and you started doing podcasts together. You were very early in. I think
you were episode 8 of my podcast.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
We've all came a very long way. And this Zoom thing is way better than the other ways we were communicating. This is fun. I could do this anytime. You let me know.
No, and I saw that I was watching CNN and I saw that they use Skype. And I was like, yo, technology just is what it is. Like, this is the best cause I was like, this shit, I enjoy this. This shit is awesome.
Way better than Skype, too.
So there'll be much more to come of this. Make sure you guys go. Don't forget, call that hotline, 847-665-9238, if you have anything. And
let me just plug my shit real quick. Like, just in a hot second. At CapF Sports on everything, /CapF Sports for everything, and then type sports with a capital S into YouTube. Sorry, it's trying to be funny until I got another beer. But anyway, I really appreciate this.
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely.
What did we get done here today, though? Did we learn anything?
We learned that no matter what, we're gonna have a day we deserve.
That's beautiful. All right, sir.
And we're out.
All right.
Listeners, if you're listening in the podcast app, I need you to go rate this. So make sure you search King Bo Christ or search by the podcast name, I Say That to Say This. Leave a 5-star rating. I don't know, a goat emoji or something, some nice words, and hit send. I appreciate you listening. Thank you.